Hello and welcome back to Geekverse Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, and more. I'm your host, Dylan Muss, and today I have with me the clown prince of podcasts himself, Travis. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. This is going to be a fun one. I feel like I don't think it was one of our first duo reviews, but for a video game, the very first one, it's a long time coming. That felt like a decade ago. I know it's been quite a while, but in general, I just had 4 days off, so I'm dreading tomorrow because I go back. But then I work for 4 days, and then I have 9 days off. So I'm just trying to trying to rush through. But at least right now I got Horizon at home, so it was a good weekend. Mini spoiler for my thoughts. So
Yeah, good stuff. So yeah, this is SideQuest, of course, our weekly video game show. Subscribe to the Geekverse SideQuest feed, so you can get all those episodes, and then also Out of Man will go up there and any other gaming specific content. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about Horizon Forbidden West, the sequel, which 5 years ago is when the
That's
first one came
crazy.
out. It seems I was going to say longer than that and less than that at the same time, but it really does feel like it's been a long time since we've played that game, sat down, did the review. So it's fun to be back. This for the YouTube listeners. This is a screenshot I took from the game.
Really?
So
Okay.
photo
Very
mode.
nice. Yeah. No, I honestly thought you just pulled a wallpaper or something like that. It looks really good.
It looks like one of the promotional
Yeah.
kind of package things they do. So shout outs to a good photo mode and just a beautiful game in general. Other shout outs, go join the Geekverse Discord. It's a fun place. We're always talking about new games and, news and just anything that happens. Subscribe to our Patreon to get episodes early and ad free. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Thank you to Amanda who makes the music for Geekverse Sidequest. And here's what the next few weeks are looking like. So next week, Elden Ring review, another spicy review. And then the week after that is going to be Triangle Strategy review, which also the demo I've played a few hours of, and it's really fun, so I'm excited for that one as well. And then Out of Man Episode 8 has officially been recorded. Yesterday, me and Taylor recorded that, and it was a fun one. We did a hypothetical, if Xbox were to make a platformer like Smash Bros, we did like a hypothetical roster. So we picked 36 characters that we would pick to have in the game. We did like assist trophies as well. We did some stages.
Wow.
Talked about like what mechanics, what kind of different mechanics we'd want. It was a really fun episode. Especially off the heels of Activision Blizzard acquisition. Like now was the time to do that cast.
Yes.
And also, so Travis, I've wanted to do this for PlayStation for a long time because they did PlayStation All-Stars, of course, but that was back on the PS3. That was a long time ago. The roster was really weird. Things have changed a lot. I want to do that again. Is that something you would be interested in? Because if so, I'll slot you in there.
Absolutely. I'm a sucker for like Smash I grew up with. So anytime we hear about like multiverse or there's that Lego Brawlers that's apparently coming out. Anytime we have some sort of some sort of stage platformer fighter, I'm always wanting it to happen. So yeah, I'm definitely down to get a list together and try and come up with a PlayStation All-Stars 2 hopefully. And hopefully I would like them to do it. I think PlayStation's the type of company that they get scared and then they just back off, but you never know. They have so many more like characters now, and I'd love to see Joel on some sort of stage like a Forbidden West just shooting his gun out, but
yeah, cool. Well, we'll do that as well because I mean I think maybe if like Multiversus does really well, and I think Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, I think that's what the game was called. I don't know how. I don't know. People liked it, I think, and I think it sold pretty well. Like it seemed to get the hype for a few weeks there, and people were interested in it. Now I'm also very ingrained in the Smash community, so maybe it's just Smash players who were into it or something. But maybe they see that and they think now's the time for something like that. They don't really have any games like just fun party games on their system really these days. So I think it would be a good time for them to bring it back.
I don't think it's just you, because anytime we've talked about multiverses, multiple people in the GV Discord that Dylan's talking about, they say like, "Oh, try Nickelodeon, try it." So for the next time we do a stream or a gauntlet, I want to get, because I've heard enough people that like shout out there, say, "Hey, try this out." Okay, it sounds like it kind of has like a cult following, which is nice. So yeah, I'm always down to see what could happen in the future.
Cool. Well, we'll slot that in, and maybe that can be the next episode. Out of Mana. I don't like Out of Mana right now is not really like my hyper priority since I'm doing side quest every week and I'm back on the main feed and stuff like that doing more stuff. But I'm gonna try and aim for like once a month. Try and get a new Out of Mana once a month. Don't lock me down to that. That's just kind of what I'm aiming for right now. But now we got the next episode loaded up, so we'll do that. I guess so. Yeah, next week is Elden Ring. get your questions in if you're playing. If you're not, questions, topics, thoughts, whatever it is, and I'll include that in the episode. Anything you want to shout out, Travis, before we get into the juicy topic here?
No, just well, I guess the two things is always join the Patreon. Right now, I'm saying do that because the Golden Geeks voting has officially started, so people like those. So that's gonna be happening. And then for anything big, if you like video games, the Halo show's coming out in March, so check that out, that review. And then our biggest review probably of the month coming out movie-wise is The Batman. So there's going to be a couple weeks of some good stuff going on. So just always subscribe to all the feeds. And yeah, I'm really excited to listen to the Xbox One because I saw it there, but I haven't listened to it yet. Yeah. So yeah, and then I will for somehow I'm gonna when I'm back on this show I'll be talking about Tunic. So I can't because I thought about this. My officially talented. I thought about getting Elden Ring, but as I got into Horizon, I was like, there's too much for me to do here to jump into the other because we'll talk about. I was surprised by how much stuff they did add. So I have told myself to by the end of the year though. So if you do the games of the year stuff like that, whatever top 10, my plan is to get Elden Ring at some point just to try it out.
I will be getting it physical, I think. So
next
time I'm in Kelowna and when I'm done with it, I'll bring it down so you can play it that way.
Yeah, because I would want to even just get a few hours, like a few days with it, because I felt so bad last year when I saw the video game. It was just a busy year last year, but when I saw all the best, I was like, man, I've played none of these. Like they all kind of passed me by. So I'm like, this year I at least want to get a little bit more in there, you know, other than just Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff like that. So
yeah. Well, that was a good game too. But no, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I feel like it's been a long time since me and you have reviewed it. Like, we did the Ghost of Tsushima DLC, and then before that was honestly probably just Ghost of Tsushima. Like in terms of big review that me and you've done for a game. So it's just fun to be playing the same game again and chatting on Discord of like how our experience is going and stuff like that. I think that's everything to talk about before we get into this. But yeah. Horizon Forbidden West is the newest game from Guerrilla Games, the sequel, of course. So just, a quick history. Me and Travis reviewed this game, or the first game, Zero Dawn, 5 years ago. When it came out, we were both hopping in right away, even though Breath of the Wild was a thing, but we still were in there right away. And I think it's safe to say we both loved the game. We were really surprised by it. I still, to this day, it's like the most beautiful game ever made, just in terms of the visuals. It was so cool. It was just a big departure for that studio from the games they had made previously. And I don't know this. Did you play the DLC, Frozen Wilds?
No, that I never did. I remember you did, but I think it came out at a time that was like I was playing something else, like I might get to at some point, and never did. So that I never touched.
It came out I want to say like a full year or so afterwards, and it was one of those things where it's like, this is post-game content. Like, it's harder than the base game, but when you come back a year later, it's like, man, I don't remember what all the buttons do. There's no tutorial, like, getting you into this thing. So I never ended up finishing it. I just played it for a few hours. The snow physics were great. I really like that. Now it's in, like, all the games have it, Death Stranding and stuff, but... it was cool, but I just didn't have the skills anymore to go into such a DLC. But anyway, here we are 5 years later. It's also a game I've never really, like, other than that DLC, I haven't booted up the game again. So it's been a long time since I've been in this world. So yeah, I want to know, first of all, like, how far into the game are you? Like, how many hours roughly, or just... I don't know, how far do you feel like you are? And then you're on PS5, obviously.
Yes.
And I believe there's like a fidelity or a, like, what do they call it? Fidelity or like
performance or
performance
something
mode,
like that.
yeah. So what did you play on, or did you switch around?
I always go with the mode that's the most prettiest. I'm fine for a little, you know, like a little lag. And it actually hasn't happened. There's only one time where my game completely went wonky and I had to restart. But other than that, I've had no problems whatsoever.
Nice.
And yeah, so I went with the high fidelity. Yeah, I'm playing on PS5. And I'm about, so I don't know, because I'd look through, and not to get like advancements, I'd look through YouTubers like walkthroughs to see like, okay, roughly, because I've done it before, like, oh, where am I? And one time I saw one where it looked like I was only 2 videos to the ending, and then one I looked like I was like 12 to 13. So I don't know, because
I
some
like
people
this
always
metric, like how many of the Let's Play videos.
I've done that before, because I'm like, okay, this is how much I got. So I would say like the main story, I'm probably somewhere like a 60-65. But I think even then it's embarrassing, because when you look at I didn't look at total times played, but when I looked at percentage of how far I've done stuff in the game, it's like 13% completed of everything. I'm like, man, I feel so minute. But my character Aloy is she's level 22, and I just finished. There's a setup for some big things you have to go find. I found one of those things, and that's where I am. So it's and I played it. hours wise, I think you said 25. I could say I'm somewhere around there, like a 25, 30 and whatnot, because I played some today. Yesterday was pretty much just dedicated. So that was like a 10, maybe 12-hour day just yesterday. I had no kids. So like, okay, sat down, just got as much as in, and then a little, I almost had a little fatigue because I was like, man, I keep seeing tricep armor and everything. But yeah, so roughly around.
When you look at that
there.
map, like you just get exhausted. It's like
Yeah.
even compared to Ghost of Tsushima, like there's like 4 times as many icons everywhere, and you zoom in on a city, and then there's like 10 icons there. It can be intense to look at.
When I paused for the first time and zoomed out, I was like, oh my God, like you gotta be kidding me. There's so much to do. And that's the thing, like when you get to those areas, there's so much fill them. It's not just like open ground. We'll talk about all different things in there, but they fill the game out quite nicely, but it is a massive map.
Yeah. So as Travis alluded to, I'm about 25 hours in. I've played a lot, and so I'm playing on base PS4, and so I'm gonna talk about some performance issues that I've had just before we talk about the game itself. Just because if you're playing on PS4, I'm sure a lot of people don't have their PS5 yet or can't find one. They haven't decided to get one yet. You should know about some of these issues. So I've had the game crash more than once. I've had the game, like there's frame rate drops in certain sequences. Like if a machine breaks through one of those destructible walls, the frame rate tanks. But generally it's pretty good. But there was one sequence I had where I was on this mission. I had to go get these parts from this machine, and like the game just slowly started slowing down to a point where it was at about 5 frames per second, and it just persisted, which is tricky because this game doesn't have a free save. Like you can only save at campfires, and the auto saving is generally pretty good, but sometimes you die and it's like, oh shit, I'm back like 15 minutes. So I just kind of had to keep going with it. It never improved. I tried to go back to the home page, open it up, and the only thing that fixed it was closing the game and then opening it up. And I've had that a lot where I've had to like hard close the game because of a bug and then open it up again. There's a lot of loading. The loading times like for fast travel and stuff are, I'd say, pretty standard for last gen, but there's a lot of just like random hiccups, like just randomly, not like you're going into a new area or something, but the screen just goes black for like 2 seconds and then a loading screen pops up for 5 seconds, then you're back into it. That happens pretty often. I've had a lot of issues with clipping through walls and falling through the floor and dying. Textures not loading. One time I was poisoned, like I was just glitched out and poisoned. The only way to solve it was to close the game and open it back up. NPCs not popping in correctly. The loading of the map is kind of the most annoying thing, because you like pop up the map, which happens instantly, and you can see the map, but then the icons take like 5 seconds to populate on there. So that's kind of annoying. So yeah, you should be aware of those things. I'm 25 hours in, I've encountered all of that. It's not game breaking in any way, and like any problem I did have, I was able to fix by reloading the game. But reloading the game isn't, I'm not on a PS5 or a Series X, so it takes a few minutes to actually close the game and open it up again. So yeah, it's honestly, I'm gonna say it's not totally acceptable. Like the state it's in, I don't remember this level of issues with the first game, and obviously I mean, if they're gonna sell this game on PS4, it has to run well on the systems, and I think they maybe just bit off a bit more they could chew by making this a cross-gen thing. I'm still glad I can play it, obviously, but yeah, for the PS4 players out there, just beware that there is a lot of technical issues. Now, I'm on base PS4, not the Pro, so I can't speak to the quality of the Pro.
Yeah, no, for me, I thought of you right away when I die in the load times. They are, because I know Xbox always gets so much praise for the load times being so quick, but when I die, I literally go to pick up the phone, like, okay, and then it's already back, like hit continue, ready to go. And it is interesting, because I've been one of those things that we've talked about before many times, of they're making games for both right now, big subscriber base, and obviously it makes sense, as some people that want a PS5 can't get it. But I am wondering when the actual what's the first going to be the jump game of like, hey, this really, like, what's the Cyberpunk where there's like really like you were referring to actual game breaking issues, or just a copious amount of issues that we can't actually release this on a PS4. It will come at some point, but yeah, that is annoying. And I do think that, I hope that's not something that continues, because we have maybe God of War that's going to do the same. I know there's a few others coming out this year, so I hope that doesn't, because I'm with you. To me, I was guys saying, okay, you should just cut and do PS5. Okay, well, if you're not, then you still gotta, you have so many people that are on those systems, you still gotta give some care to them. So yeah, it's nowhere near as bad as a Cyberpunk, obviously, or else you'd see 100 articles on it. Yeah, but I would compare it to a Bethesda game, and people, that's notorious. People shit on Bethesda games, and
I think sometimes it's a bit overblown for Bethesda games, and so I'd put this kind of on that level with just like the odd crash or things you have to close the game to reopen it, just little annoying things. But
Plus, you unlock skates like that video. You
oh
sent
yeah,
me.
I sent Travis a video of this where my Alo is just like on one of those rolly shoes. And I couldn't whip up my bow. I was in the middle of a fight when this happened, and I just couldn't take my bow out, and she was just like skating on the ground. And then there was like her body, nothing was moving on her body except for, of course, her hair was flying.
Oh yeah, they gotta make sure the hair. And like this was a big glitch for me. But there's one where it was like a side quest, whatever. I help these people out, and then I go to talk to whatever, you get a trophy or something, you go to talk to them. But in the distance, there were these dinosaurs that weren't too far, but were close enough. So while I'm talking, having a cutscene, the dinosaurs had seen me right before I hit play or hit triangle to talk to them.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to them. And then on the side of me, there's two guys that were a part of her tribe, like just NPCs that are getting destroyed by these dinosaurs. But we're just having a natural conversation like, thanks, Aloy. What's going to be your next move against these guys?
Yeah.
Well, I don't really know. And in the background, these guys are just getting murdered. And it was one of the funniest things ever. I was laughing the whole time. I was like, when's it gonna stop? When's it gonna break? And it never did. And then right when that thing ended, it like booted me to a new scene. So I never actually had to fight the dinosaurs,
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And the saves are a little janky though, because I had a situation where I had to go, there's some camps you take over. I had to go take over on this camp, and my animals, sometimes they get way too excited and they just want to jump in the fight. I hate it. I'm just like, I wish they kind of had a Red Dead like stay or come situation, because sometimes I just want them to stay.
I think there actually is in the skill tree. I think I saw you can go up to them and select passive or defensive. So I don't know. I don't know if that would help you, but that actually saw that was in the skill tree somewhere.
My animals are like suicide bombers. Like they will I will have them so far away and they'll just run in, and I'm spending all these.
You got to use that to your advantage. Then you got to just throw a shit ton of bombs on him and then send him in. And
yeah,
then,
I guess.
Blow it up.
But it always happens when I'm in the middle of nowhere with sometimes it's when I have a bunch of fire camps. Oh, that's fine. He'll stay alive. But if I'm going to the territory for the first time ever, that's when he's gonna die. But so I had him. We went in camp, and then I saved him, and I was like, okay, that's fine. He almost died, but I revived him. It happened to save when I was like autosave when I was like reviving him. So I lost to the camp and I came back. When I came back, I was at the camp, but in the background, the dinosaurs were back alive, just killing my machine, and he was already downed. So I was like, oh, this isn't fair. So then I go try the camp. I die again. So I'm like, well, at least when I come back, my dinosaur robot's going to be alive. No, he was just dead. So the save made no sense, where it saved him on a revive, and then when I came back, he was just dead. So this game has been pretty brutal with taking my animals away. So
yeah. Well, I guess you just got to jump off them much before the fight rather than.
Yeah, I gotta look in that skill tree too. I gotta get that for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the basics. So yeah, what are you thinking of the game? We'll keep story spoilers to the end, and I don't know, we'll get more spoilery as things go along. I think this is one of those games that really seeing these new beasts for the first time, and some of the new weapons. Like to me, that's like the spoilery stuff. Like obviously the story is there as well, but dip out whenever you feel it worthy, but we'll keep this opening part as spoiler free as possible. So yeah, you're about 25 hours in. What do you think of the game?
Yeah, I've kind of been through a whirlwind where the first couple hours I was not thinking it was bad, but I was just not feeling it. But I also just remembered that this game, because I didn't go back and listen to our review, I should have, but I remember us talking about how it's not you just jump in and go for the fight. And I had a couple of times that was like bumping into the robots, bumping into guys where it's like, hey, I'm just going to beat these guys on a move forward. And it doesn't happen. You can't do it that way. But it is like a very diverse set of skills and arrows. And I forgot what happens when you have like 15 different bows and you got to, which is kind of annoying, but you have to pause and you got to think, okay, what's best here and stuff like that. So I just felt like I was not, and I guess like you said, it's been 5 years, but I felt like even usually games for sequels, I still pick up a bit faster. Like, okay, I've been here before, I've played it, I got a general idea. This felt like a whole new learning curve again. It felt like the first time I had played it. And I will say that very happy that more games should do this. They did like a nice 2.5 minute recap of the last game.
Yeah.
I was very happy because this is a spoiler for the first game. I was like, man, I forgot I was a clone. I completely forgot all this
Yeah,
stuff, and
same.
that's one of the things because like the last game had like a good enough story, but it wasn't amazing. But more games should do that. That are sequels. They should, because that was so refreshing. Like, okay, I felt like I was right back in the world. But so I was having to relearn everything, and I was just worried. I was like, oh, am I just not liking this? Am I just maybe past this game? And then there was a middle point where just once I started to get flown again, I think actually once you get past the cold open and the credits and everything, the game picked up and was better. I think this game does serve better. We've talked about this many times when it is open world exploration, when you can choose what you want to do. When the beginning was much more like a Uncharted, where it was taking you from kind of set piece to set piece, that's when I wasn't really enjoying it. But luckily that's only like an hour and a half, something like that. So once I got there, it was fantastic to be back in the world. I forgot kind of the thrill of getting into a situation and looking at all of these dinosaurs or whatever robots, looking at the whole thing like, okay, what can I use? What can I? I don't have enough arrows for this, everything like that. So that was good. And then it got to a point where, not that I wasn't enjoying it more, but then it got to a point, that's where I actually stopped playing today, where I'd felt like I had not mastered it, but like, okay, I kind of remember, I feel like I'm in an end game of Horizon, Travis, where it's like I can take down these things pretty easily now. And that's where I like that they are introducing some new types, so that does help. That does make me feel more challenged. But then there was a middle portion for a while where it was just, I hadn't died in a long time. Like in a long time, I was kind of walking over these people. So I'm having a really good time. I think they've added a lot of cool little side quests or side things. There's some things that I wish they did. I don't know, like how spoilery are a game mode? Like what like is that spoiler for me to say, or
I don't even know what you mean by game mode.
well, something like I'll just say it, the ruins or the campsite. Like I don't remember those being where that's very Shadow of Mordor. Maybe I'm just forgetting it, but it was like, okay, this is an enemy camp. You got to take it over and free it. You know, almost like Ghost of Tsushima, right?
Yeah.
And that was in the first game. Was it for Horizon? I don't think so, because I feel like the fighting of people are
added
minimal.
variety to it, but there was like human camps that you're taking over. But
In
you
the
mean
first
like the
game there
machine?
was?
Yeah, there definitely was.
Really? Oh, then I definitely forgot about them. So that's where I like those. I like with the ruins in the first game, because those I don't remember being in the first game.
You know, I'm not sure. That didn't seem too familiar to me, but I've also only done like maybe a couple of those, so I don't know. Maybe I just haven't done enough to kind of be familiar with it.
So, and here's where I'll say, because it doesn't matter either way. Either they are in the first game and they're in this game, or the new. I think it's not a con, but my only critique about this game is I feel that we talked about the first time, where this is a great game. It'll be a lot of best of the years and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's never gonna get that top award. I still feel there's something missing with this game that usually with a sequel that gets it to the next level. And I think, not that I'm disappointed, but that's why today I almost like took a break. We're like, okay, I'm gonna take a couple days off and then just get back in the world, because it felt like it almost just feels like more DLC, and maybe that's kind of like disappointing in a sense, where I'm looking for a lot more, I don't know, evolution, where there's some really cool new boats, there's some really cool new animals, but again, nothing that's crazy. And I've always said this before the first game, I think you agree with this, that I'm a big story guy, and the story is always good, but there's nothing, it's not the best in the world. You're not gonna win best story in anybody, I think, with this, right? And I was kind of not expecting that, but kind of hoping, because the first game was more just, wow, look at this world. I have been to this world before. You are going to new locations, but still, I'm hoping by the end of the game I feel differently. I'm still very much enjoying it, and like you talked about the first game, I could say about this game that this game is so beautiful. Like this game, there's like, you're talking to people and you just see like their pores and minor little face, whether they're scars or just actual hair and stuff like that. It's crazy. And this is actually for me the first game, because when I bought Miles, that was the PS4 to PS5 like jump over and stuff. Like all my PS5 games have been the jump overs. I've never played here's the base PS5 one, you get the best. And it really was like, man, this is, we don't got to get any better, but it's a beautiful game, so it's worth that. The landscapes, the people, there's so many cool like costumes and makeup. That's just a 10 out of 10 home run. So I'm really enjoying the game. I wouldn't say I'm disappointed, but I am wondering if there's a second gear. If there's not, it's great, there's more Horizon, but at the same time, I wonder if they make a third, if I will be more, if by the end of this game I'm hoping that, I want a third one, where there's a chance I could finish the second one and be like, you know what, I'm good for Horizon for a while.
Right.
Like it's not pushing it forward for me. So those are my base thoughts on my weekend playthrough.
Cool. I'll ask you one more thing, and that is, would
Mhm.
you? Are you? It sounds like you like it enough. Who are
Yeah.
you recommending this to?
I think it works either way. Like it's definitely a game that is really enjoyable. Like as far as right now, I think that first one I was at least in like that 9 sort of realm. I think it is still that. Like it's still another
Mm-hmm.
great solid entry. So I don't even think the first one, if you don't play it, you're gonna be missing some story beats. But if you didn't catch it, I'd say I'd recommend this for pretty much everyone, unless you're just not like Taylor says, he's just not really into the single player games. He likes
Mm-hmm.
the multiplayer stuff like that. That's really it. If you're looking for a single player base game on Sony right now, whether you have a PS5 or PS4, especially it's tough because you got Elden Ring next week, so that could be
Yeah.
a tough thing for people. But if you're not into those, this is a perfect game. Like, it has pretty much everything you want as far as enjoyability. I don't think it's too hard and obviously they have like 5 different like difficulties.
Yeah.
So if you play the first one, yes. If you haven't, I think you could definitely dive in. I don't think there's too many people you wouldn't, unless you're very specifically not into this type of genre and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Cool. Yeah. As I actually feel very similarly to you, which is funny. Last week, me and Kirkland were on just total opposite ends of the spectrum when it came to Sifu. But yeah, I think this game has just one of the slowest starts I can think of in games in recent times. I want to talk about that more, but we'll get into why that is. But yeah, I was feeling like the start was really slow, and it was fun to be back in this world playing the game again. Feels good, looks great. But I think the first while, honestly, like for me, like the first 10 hours or so, I was just feeling like the first areas aren't really that different from what you play in the first game. And some of the new machines are cool, but it's not really like new mechanics. There's like a couple new weapons, but like the base gameplay is kind of the same. And I was just really disappointed in the fact that you start with nothing in this game. I think that's one of my things with the slow start.
I just laugh when they're like, "You're looking light, Ayla." Yeah, I lost it all on a mission, and we had talked about that offcast.
Yeah.
About I knew it was gonna go that way. Of like, yeah, no, sorry, I lost it in attack, and yeah, you're just one arrow.
So dumb. You don't start the game with a single arrow in your
Yeah.
quivers. You got to start from scratch. So yeah, it took me a while before I started warming up to it, and I think it actually was that part that you are at in that main story where you kind of have this section where you can kind of go to these 3 different places and you can choose which one. And it wasn't even just that choice, because really, I mean, it's not like you have this huge choice that you only pick one and that changes the scope of the story. You're still going to do all these things, but I think for me that is when it really opened up and you start to discover more interesting areas at that point. I really liked that part you're at. Those 3 quests, like 2 of them are just amazing to me. Like some really amazing parts of these, like that stand on top of even some of the stuff in the first game. And I think by that point, like I was ranked up enough that I had quite a few skill point upgrades. I had a good set of weapons and armor and stuff like that. So I was actually back at like close to, I feel like, the strength I had in the first game in a way. So yeah, it took me a while, but I started warming up to it. But I totally agree. Like this is not an evolution in any way. And I think if you were someone who was kind of, I don't know, maybe in the middle on the first game and you thought it was decent, but maybe wanted a bit more, I don't think this game's going to do it for you. It's not going to crank it up to the next notch or take that framework or that foundation that they built and just kind of make this amazing game on top of it. It is more of the same, and that's fun enough, but it's not, I don't know. It's just not grabbing me in a way that the first game did. And the way I had issues with the first game, but it's still like, it just blew me away. It was so cool. And I don't know, just instantly was just so hot on this game, but I'm just not really having the same experience for this one. So there is still a lot of great stuff with it, and I'm excited to talk about that stuff. But yeah, it's just I don't know. It's in the middle good to me. We'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, well, it's funny just because we had talked about that before. I feel like maybe not that we hyped ourselves up, but it was 5 years ago. I thought we talked about a lot of like, man, imagine this is the base game, what they have now, what they can do with a sequel, what they could change up. And again, luckily, we still have things to do. Like I hadn't even done 2 out of those three things. I've only done the
Yeah.
first one, and for me, that's one thing that I have enjoyed. I will say, because it's a different mindset I have. That obviously, like with this show, we're doing reviews in progress, so I'll be happy to, because I'll definitely be done next time I'm on here to talk about Tunic. We'll definitely talk about this again.
Yeah.
But I have been enjoying that, because if I want a game that just is for exploring, this has that sort of, if you love that genre of you're just set in a place, once you get past the start, if you get set in a place and just go, you can do that. And this time I've definitely been doing that a lot more. I think people, if you're a long time listeners, know I would like start main campaign, that's it. Now, because the show, I didn't feel the pressure of that, but also I will say a few years ago that Last of Us 2 broke me, because that was like having to like get through that main story. That was almost my epiphany. Like, I don't want to do this anymore, because there's so many times I just wanted to put it down, and that almost made me dislike it more. But like, no, I'm gonna get through. Where this, like, okay, not even put it down, but it's like, okay, there's stuff in the main story that I maybe don't even care about. I'm gonna go off and listen to this woman's rumor and go here. And that's the thing, like, this is a game where and here's another thing I recommend too. If you only buy like one game a year or 2 games a year and you want a game to be full of lots of stuff, this is one of those games where it's going to take you out of, like, if you want 100% this game, I think it is worth its money that way. You're not going to feel, I don't think you'd buy it and feel really let down as far as, oh man, I went through it really quick. No, there's so much stuff that they have as far as content wise. So I will say, as somebody that hasn't bought Guardians count, but Guardians was that Uncharted thing, right? If you're going to set piece to set piece, I haven't had a big solo game in quite a while that I was really excited for. And maybe that's also part of the reason why I may be a tad disappointed, because I kind of built it up a little bit. So,
Right.
But yeah, I just say that as far as I'm playing a different way this time, and that has been great. The just kind of, okay, I see this looks cool, I'm going to go over here. Okay, this person looks funky, I'm going to talk to them, see what they got going on, you know?
Nice. Yeah, I actually, it's funny you say that, because I had somewhat of an opposite experience in a way, where when it got to this point where you're more open up and you're at a point in a story where I just felt like, okay, now I want to go just screw around, look around in the open world, like, that looks cool, I'm going to go over that way. And I was feeling like the game was actually gating me off from doing things. I was coming into like just invisible walls where it's like, oh, you're not actually supposed to progress this right now. And like, to me, that's the opposite of what an open world game should do.
Yeah.
There was like a tall neck that I went out of my way to go to, and then it's like had a lock on it, and I wasn't allowed to do it yet. Like, you just physically could not get on top of it yet. And I was like, that sucks. And then there was even a couple, like, there was a ruins I went to. I did like all this platforming bullshit, and then I get to this point, and it's like, oh, actually, there's like an upgrade you need to get it through this last door to get the reward, and you don't have that yet. So see you later. And so yeah, that stuff was like really bothering me, because I love getting lost in these worlds, but I just felt like the game was telling me just mainline the story, which is not something I usually do, but instead I just ended up doing that. And then eventually I found the enjoyment, and I got further on, and now those things that were blocking me out, I've unlocked them now, and I can go back and do some of that stuff. But yeah, that was a bit weird to me, and I feel like maybe that was the last thing I wanted to mention, is I just feel like in the time since this game has come out, we've seen so many more open world games, and they've pushed the genre in different ways. They've done interesting things. And even this one did a lot at the time. And I just feel like there was a lot of lessons they just didn't really take from the first game, or there's just things that have happened since that I think they should have just completely stolen. Like, they obviously took some things, like the glider is something they were promoting a lot, and that's cool, and I'm glad that's in the game. But I almost wish they stole more, especially from Breath of the Wild. Like, I would have loved a more involved climbing system, rather than just like, you can only climb these yellow bars.
Yeah.
That kind of annoys me at times, and we'll talk about more specifically why that is the case. But I think before we kind of crank it up to the not full spoilers, but just like the next level of spoilers, the last thing I want to mention is that the music in this game is fucking phenomenal.
Yeah,
I don't really remember the Zero Dawns. Like, maybe it's the same composer, and maybe I just kind of forgot about it in the 5 years that have passed. But the music in this game is fantastic. There is like some sections where it gets really fantastical with just kind of, I don't even know how to describe it, but just like feels like there's magic in the air.
Whimsical.
Whimsical, and lines up with some of these like these holograms you're seeing in specific locations without spoiling. There's just kind of these more slow, melodic, like uplifting themes that play after you've maybe done some progression in the story that opens up something, and it's just like this really just warm music that plays for the next few minutes as you are kind of living off that high. There's some really darker, more intense music, and that kind of it is almost like a bit like more techno-y and like harsh music that really fits some more like the cauldrons and things like that, kind of have music like that. So
felt a little Death Stranding at times.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then even just a lot of music that makes you feel uneasy. Like, there's this one track in the game I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but it's like for a bit it'll be this really nice like melodic music that's kind of safe and warm, but then it goes like these uneasy chords and notes, and it kind of just wavers back and forth. And the location that plays in, like that kind of vibe, just fits perfectly. So I really wanted to praise the music. I'm actually gonna pull up whoever the composer is. I don't know off the top of my head, but I really wanted to shout that out because that really has stood out to me so far.
Yeah, I don't think I have any more adjectives that you didn't use to describe it, but I thought the same thing. There's so many moments where whether I'm just waiting for something happening or I'm in the moment while it's happening, whether it is action, drama, or something sad or tragic or just even information, the music, I think the same thing as you, where to me, maybe I will just have to go back and listen to a review at some point, but to me, most time if a video game has like a great score, I at least remember, okay, my 5 things I remember about a game a few years ago. I like this, music was really good. You know, like I always say with Death Stranding, with the score and the soundtrack, like that always stands out of these situations. There's so many times where I thought, okay, it's just they're doing this part really well. And no, it just has such a wide variety of stuff. It kind of reminds me of, I always mess up his name, but it's a Ludwig Grunson who does like Mando and Boba, but he did Tenet, he did Black Panther. It has that type of Black Panther vibe where in the second it could be, like you said, very calm and cool and whimsical. It makes you feel almost like Lord of the Rings, and then other times it is just kind of this techno. There's just like it's really really well done, and that is definitely one thing. So I talk about the exploration and the, as far as the visuals, like the just what the game looks like being another home run. The score is one of those too. It's it's a knockout.
Yeah, it actually is the same composer. So it's two. There's the Flight, which I don't know if this is like a band or just someone's kind of stage name. It looks like a musical duo, and then Joris or Joris Demand. So sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that correctly, but yeah, same composer. But and so maybe the music in the first game is great, and I just haven't gone back and listened to it in a long time. But yeah, it's really standing out. So yeah, with that, maybe we'll kind of crank this up to the next level of spoilers. Not quite the story spoilery stuff, but just kind of we're gonna talk about the robots and some of the areas and some of the characters. So if you think that's too spoilery for you, then I think you've got some at least some opening thoughts to decide if you want to play the game first before going ahead. So let's do a quick ad break, and then when we come back, we'll get into the next round of stuff. All right, and we are back. So I want to go right back to the start because we both critiqued the game for having a slow start. And I just want to talk about this because I feel like a game like this, an open world game, a game that you're spending a good, I don't know how much I spent, maybe 40, somewhere between 40 and 60 hours in the first game, Zero Dawn, maybe even a bit more than that. Like I played it a lot for months. Is there a solution to the slow start of like, why do you have to get rid of all your gear? Could maybe it be a Mass Effect thing where it sees that, okay, I played the first game, so I'm going to give you some more stuff to start. I think for me, one of the things that was the most annoying was that your quiver has like 20 arrows maximum at the start of the game. Fucking why, man? Like that is so bad. Like let's at least skip some of that fluff at the start of the game where you're getting there. And I understand if you're a new player, but I think there needs to maybe be a solution there because it took, like I said, a good like 10 hours before I felt like I was truly back on my feet. Do you feel the same way, or do you have critiques of the slow start in other ways?
No, I'm with you on both. I thought just the way the actual tutorial and just even almost just, I wouldn't say the story per se, but it just was not grabbing me right away. But I do agree. It's tough though because we get that with all of these things, and I feel like there almost to be a trend of one game to do it concurrently, like a couple sequels, and more people are like, oh, we'll keep doing this. This one's tough because maybe if they thought about, oh, what if people are jumping from PS4 to PS5? But again, you could still be able to link that stuff if you should be able to know who played what. But when we were talking about that, I think it was offcast or maybe during a newscast, I just knew that's the way it's going to go. Unfortunately, I know it's the same way it's going to go in Spider-Man, is his suit's going to get damaged and everything we lost. It's just like a kind of and maybe that is a bad clutch for them to have. It's just, okay, we got to start over and here you go. And I guess I won't give them credit, but I felt like I got most of that old gear back pretty quickly. I told you my way of finding a way of getting lots of metal sharps, and then I just went to a store and just bought everything. And that's maybe why in the middle portion too, I felt like, okay, I've kind of mastered this. With the first game, it was you're slowly getting this stuff through story. This was just, okay, if you find the right spot and the right shopkeeper, you can get a good stuff. So that's why I think for me, if if I would have not gone that gear a lot sooner, then I probably would have had more as a con. But the beginning, I kind of get it because they're saying, okay, she's off, and it has to be for if there is a new person. Because if a new person did get all this stuff, they might be overwhelmed. But like you said, they should have like a new game plus mode for people to carry over. But it almost just has that, Ubisoft open world feel where it's that you got to start base game, and here you go.
And I get it. Like, that makes a game much harder to balance if you're having to base it off these two people. And like, what if you have someone who played Horizon for 50 hours and then, or the first game, sorry, Zero Dawn for 50 hours, and then you have someone who played it for 5 hours? Like, do they just by default get the same stuff going in here? I don't think you should start this game with all the tools you had in the first game, because like we said, when I came back to the DLC, I'm fucking lost. It's like, I don't remember what this stuff does. I don't remember all the buttons that I need, especially when, if you hold the weapon wheel and then you can click through to select your ability, and then like there's a lot of little things, and they even add more in this game. So I don't know what the solution is, but I think just speed along that start. And like that opening, for example, that whole opening section of the game that you said is about an hour and a half, 2 hours or something like that, where you're kind of getting just the basic, like how to jump and crouch, like that tutorial stuff. I would have been down if they also made that like a condensed 5-minute story thing that you could have, if you're a returning player, skip that part and go right to the Forbidden West and start right there. Because that seemed like a bit much to me, and I don't know, the game just had a very slow start because that. Another thing that felt weird to me is like, in the first few areas, all the machines you're seeing are new as far as I can tell. Like, I think they kind of keep it all new machines, but then eventually you do see like most, if not all, of the machines they bring back in certain areas. Like, I think one or two of them might only be in one or two areas. Like, they don't focus on them because they were a big enemy in the first game. But there's weird stuff too, where when you scan one of those for the first time, it's like, oh, new entry, and Aloy has no idea what these machines are, and that feels really weird. And it's like they set up like the Thunder Jaws, like one of the big beasts in the first game. It's like in this one again, she's like, oh shit, a thunder, like what is this? And it's like, dude, I've fought these many times. Like, why am I doing this? It's for my Aloy, it doesn't make sense, So maybe she got hit on the head in one of those battles too, and forgot. But like, I don't know. It shouldn't say new scanning. Like, I've scanned this thing 100 times. I don't know.
We'll wait till stories, but I feel between the player tutorial, not even tutorial, just some of the player stuff you do and some of the story beats, I feel the whole My Aloy thing, I'm all over the map with that because I feel they've lost a lot of consistency with that character. But it is funny when you talk about the finding the whole new world. It just, all you have to just be like, oh, I've messed with one of those before. You like those will do some damage. Like, just make it
and
like
that would
a
be cool. That would be
a
great thing to add. I would be praising that as just like a little thing in this game if they did have little lines like that. And I don't know, maybe they exist for some of the machines, but so far the ones I remember, I'm like, I know what a Watcher is. Why I've fought 1,000 of these. This is the fodder enemy in the first game. Why is this a new entry? So, so that's too bad.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else with no, anything else I have beginning wise. I'll bring it when we do the story later on. If like I felt it was maybe a little too, just as a preview, maybe rinse and repeat as far as like what you end up being with the threat, especially because they had that end credit at the first one. But the tutorial, it's a little slow and unfortunate. But again, I'd love to talk to somebody that maybe didn't play the first one. It's probably completely fine for them, right? Because it's hand walking them in. So.
Okay, I kind of want to complain about a couple more things, and then honestly, after that, it's like I have a lot of positive stuff today. But one thing that I mentioned was like those platforming sequences. Well, I kind of mentioned that with like climbing and how that could be more involved, and you don't have to copy the stamina system and let you climb everything, because I understand that's very hard to balance a game and puzzles when your player has like so much freedom. But I still feel like, man, I don't know. I found like climbing some of these yellow walls and little hand grabs was a bit much for me. And you do a lot of it this game, and there's a lot of platforming sequences that I felt like, man, you have more tools in this game with the gliding and stuff like that. And I still feel like just most of these platforming sequences, when you're like inside of a building doing a single player mission, there's always some sequence where you're climbing around and you gotta put some energy cells in a random thing.
Yes,
that stuff. I don't know, man. I really don't like how linear it is. I think it's very opposite to the ethos of these open world games, and I understand it's like a balancing thing. But did you find these things, like for example that grapple hook, and like you can hook onto things that are blue and kind of have a cross pattern? Not a good addition, if you ask me. I don't think that was in the first game, but I did not like that addition to these kind of platforming sequences.
Well, I'm happy you brought that up because it's funny. And one thing I guess I should mention with the tutorial versus the game, I felt the tutorial. There's many times I got lost and they were not being like telling me where I was going.
I've
but
used
then,
a lot of. I've had to use like a few guides for
yeah,
certain
yeah.
missions because it's like I don't know where I'm supposed to go. There's only one solution, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and I feel like there's something that kicks in later on where Aloy just will start telling you, like, if you screw up, like, hey, do this, and they'll literally be like, hey, I need this code, and they'll just like, hey, here's your document, like, look at this code. But early on, I felt like it was a little messy, and I think it's strange for a game that has a tutorial. There's a lot of things that, you know, and some people might be like, well, that's the way you do it. It's video games, but it's interesting. There's a lot of things they almost don't teach you, and this is one thing I'll use as an example. There was a rune that I had where you have a cart and you're supposed to push it, and it's like on a train track. Have you done this one yet?
I did, yeah.
I had to look up a guide for this one, honestly, because so you have this building and then there's a cart maybe 10 feet from it, right?
I also had to use a guide for this, so I'm
Yeah.
wondering if it's the same spot that we had to use a guide.
So what happens is you move the cart up to the building, you can go up and get a green stone, and then there's nothing really else there. And it's like, oh, this is interesting. Like, what am I supposed to do with this cart? And then I was looking all around. I couldn't find it. So then the walkthrough, thank goodness for YouTubers and stuff like that, because I don't have time as a father of 3 to be looking 10 hours of like trying to get this rune. But I'm here, so I want to complete it, so I want to come back. So what it is, though, is you're supposed to push this thing all the way back to its main point, and then you can flip a switch that you've never done, that you've never been taught before, never shown a mission. Usually, and that's why someone might say, oh, I like that. It's just like, it's so random. You learn it. Okay, but most time to me, if I, like how you build a good game is you either do that in a story or some other mission. They teach you once, so then in the future, when it does come up, you go, oh, I'm an idiot. Right, this is what it's done. But like, I've been shown this before. I should have got this. You've never been shown this thing before, so you got to push it all the way back and throw this trigger, so then it will go the other direction. And I was explaining this all to Emily. I'm like, I felt like that's kind of bad pacing for a video game where they're supposed to teach you these things, and I feel like a lot of that stuff with the grapple hook and things, I do not know, like, what can I, especially at the beginning, I can't remember with Val, it's Carl with a V pretty much. It's Valor or whatever his name is. How you say his name? Varl. But like, there's this part where you go to climb something and a ladder breaks, and I was looking around like, I don't know what I can and can't like hook to or break, and now I do, but I felt like it wasn't the clearest. And it's kind of funny, it's a video game world, but it's still, I feel, maybe that's what I feel about the camps and I feel about the ruins, is that they're cool to have, but I feel that whether they're in the first game and they didn't upstep them, or if they're new, they made them very basic as far as like, I like doing the rune things. I like anytime you get a call back to, so much of us grew up on Zelda, right? And like the whole dungeon, unlock things, do little things to move forward, solve a puzzle. But this, it's just like, so it's like you're in a room and there's a broken wall, right? And there's clearly, I don't know, dozens of holes where Aloy could literally fit through to get there, but you have to like go some elaborate way. And I know people are gonna be like, oh, that's video games, but I feel like you got to put more effort into that and be like, okay, there should only be one way so I can get this. But when there's so many entrances, especially too when you get introduced, like you have like this, did you ever get the boomstick?
Is it like the javelins that you throw?
Yeah, you can throw. You get 6 of them at start.
I just got it recently, so I haven't used it a whole lot.
I got that like 5 hours in. It was a godsend because I can just take out the biggest animals at any point. But when you get introduced to this game and you have this thing that you could throw a wall and it's supposed to take down the biggest robots, the fact that you couldn't use it on this wall, so that's where I feel like the runes, it's fun to have, but I feel like they just kind of put them there like, okay, we got a little puzzle thing. Like if you're gonna do them, I say do them a bit more well. It's the same thing as the camps. I feel, especially with Ghost of Tsushima or something, for me, Shadow of War, those camps are so well done. And these are just, it's just a bunch of dudes and you just kind of fight. And it's just, I also, maybe I'm reading something wrong, but I feel like when you're in a combat and the person doesn't have the helmet, you should instantly shoot them in the head and it'd be almost their whole health or not. And sometimes it doesn't do that. Sometimes it's like you have to like hit them with fire and then do that. That doesn't make any sense. Like as a game designer, just put the helmet on them. And one of my favorite times though is I did hit them in the head in the game. Aloy was like, oh, I hit him in a weak spot. Like, well, yeah, I would hope so. So that's where I feel like I guess I rattle off a few things, but with the grapple hook, the ruins, the camp, with some of that combat, there's a few things that I feel like they don't almost go the full way with it. And the grab hook, they should have made that a bit more inventive too. Like they should have made it so you could, if you didn't want to, maybe even zip up or even chuck it up there to climb a little bit further. Maybe you only can use that for a little bit, but it feels very, like you said, an exploration world. Just you have to hit the specific blue X to do this. Like, okay.
Yeah. Well, I think you nailed it when you were talking about the spear on that wall, because this game has so many great tools in it. And it would be great if these things were just a bit more opened up and you could use those tools, and you feel like you come up with a solution. But instead, it's all like I think there's one ruin there. I felt like I actually could do things in a slightly different way by like, okay, what if I can just climb up on this thing? I can just get high enough to use my glider, and it felt like okay, I wasn't supposed to do that, but it worked. But there is so little of that, and that stuff is like. That's like the most memorable ruin for me is because I felt like I figured out some fun solution to
the
it.
system,
but just
yeah.
arbitrarily looking for some blue cross that sometimes when you're in a cave, man, you cannot tell what is blue and what is not. And sometimes even like they use yellow to guide like what you can climb and stuff like that. Sometimes in some places it just does not look yellow. So I don't know. I think that like the world design for me is great, and I like the camps. I think maybe not the best design times, but I just have fun going through them. But when it comes to those like indoor platforming sequences, I just think their level design is pretty weak, and you don't have to do much. Just like open it up a little bit and make it not as linear. And maybe there is more solutions to these things, and I'm just not finding them. But it just never feels like that's what I'm supposed to be doing anyway. And like
no, it feels like there's a direct
those
path.
fucking energy cells. They're never puzzles. It's just you have to take an energy cell from one place to another. It's never hidden. It's never a puzzle. It's just you have to move slowly for a while because you have to carry this energy cell. I don't know who thinks that's fun design or like which players like to do that. But for me, it's not good. And you're right. Like it's kind of a Zelda dungeon-y sort of thing, but they're just not as well designed. And some Zelda dungeons are not well designed, but it's just not as well designed as those kinds of things. So it ends up being very tedious and get rid of that grapple hook, man. I'm not a fan of the grapple hook. It's not a fun grapple hook. It's so limited in the way you use it.
The only energy cell like puzzle one time I did is I had to get something off a wall to get it over water so I could make sure it doesn't touch and electrocute or stuff. I didn't use power. So there's one where it's like, yeah, you have to get it across. So but most of them have just been you're slowly moving from point A to point B. So.
So I had to complain about that, but I think. I'm still gonna have some complaints here or there, but let's move on to the next thing. How about we just move straight into like the kind of world design? We talked about the kind of level design there, but let's talk about the open world. I kind of mentioned this how I felt like some things are. Oh, actually, sorry. I want to go back to that ruin for a second that you mentioned. That ruin with the fucking train car. So is this your experience too? You eventually figured out that there's like more to it, and you have to like go down that like what's it called, like a zip line, I guess, to get to the other part?
Yes.
That zip line, I tried like 15 times to get on it, and I could not. I had to watch a guide, and it's like, oh, I guess I just had to do this a very specific way.
But I had to run and jump. Yeah, I looked at that too.
That really got to me. And then the worst part was that, after that was like one of those red flower things was in there, right? Or whatever that thing that's on the wall, I think, that you have to blow up.
Yeah.
And I hadn't unlocked that yet. So I did all that just for me to not be able to do it anyway. That's when I was like, okay, I guess I'm not exploring anymore. I'm just gonna hunt down the main story for a bit. So
that's funny.
It's funny that we experienced that same ruin. I mean, it's an early one, close to Plain Song, I think. So it makes sense that we would both find it. But it's that place needed some work, I think.
Yeah, anytime there's a ruin, I'm going there because I want to see. Because I'm also excited to see what. Because have you got to the vendor that will accept your green stones? Because I haven't.
No, those
you tell me it's it's very valuable. Like these are a big thing, and every time I go there, when I go to sell them, like you don't want to sell these, you're gonna meet a vendor. And it's just so I'm wondering the same thing with the things you get in the ruins are called like ornaments. I'm wondering, is there a certain vendor that you will go to? Because there's still tons of the map I haven't uncovered. If I'll go there and it will be the guys it'll be his wet dream, like you have so many green stones for me, but I don't like.
I think I used one of those. Oh man, I swear I was like buying something and that was I had to pay shards and then also a greenstone or something, but I don't think I found this greenstone vendor guy that you're talking about.
Okay, so I'm hoping that comes up, and then I can't remember if there was. That's what I was gonna say. I haven't had that app, and there's only one thing when I unlocked a portion of the map. When I scanned over it, it just said you're not high enough level to do that. But luckily, I've not bumped into anything like that. I've timed it because usually what I've been doing is I'll go do a main story, and then I kind of do like 3 or 4 side quests or like rumors around there, and then I progress forward. So that's maybe why I've ended up. Maybe that's why I've had a bit more luck as far as I haven't just gone balls the wall main story. But then the same thing, you said you weren't doing that, and that kind of led you to your problem. So maybe it's just been timing for me. Maybe it's just because I know, like you said, you had gone to Plain Song a lot earlier than I had. So that's the thing where I didn't go there till the story got me to. So maybe that's why you did a bit more kind of outer exploring for me. I do the exploring once I'm in the area. So, but luckily I haven't bumped into that yet as far as, and even then when you get that whole, you can only do one of three things. The first thing I did, it was like, you have to be this level. And I was not that level, but it didn't give me, I thought for sure when I was going to go talk to the guy, they'd be like, you got to come back. And it didn't say that, so it's weird that some things they lock off, but then some things they don't. You know, I was just expecting, I went there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a tougher time, but I felt I'm still skilled enough for the game. I'm only 3 levels below. Yeah, it might take a little more harder time, but I feel like I can do this. And plus, like I said, that boomstick, if they, you know, how in Call of Duty they like nerf stuff, they should have nerfed that, because there's so many times where like there's a huge animal I fought at one point in a main mission, and I was having troubles, and I just was like tossing those boomsticks, and it was going down. And once you get the Valor, that's the thing I use, where it's like you get everything attacks higher and stuff like that. Yeah, it was, which I like. It was over for that big creature. Like I just destroyed it. So the boomstick was a huge savior. Like I heard about that and I did that quest right away, and I'm very thankful I did, because it's got me out of a sticky situation. So
yeah, I think the weapon for me that's kind of been the one that just feels overpowered. I don't know the name of it, but you just like hold it next to you. It's like a big heavy weapon, and you kind of charge it up, and then you just fire off like a bunch of shots all at once.
Oh yeah, that has like 30 clips of arrows and stuff like that. Yeah. Oh, when you, because I have that arrows, and then I have the electric version. I'm not sure did that. So yeah, when you bump into a machine that has electricity as their weakness, you rip through that thing. It's just like, I love to, it'll be like this big cutscene, like, what we gonna do? And in 2 minutes, you're just like, it's just, it's satisfying. But there's been a couple where I liked it and didn't. This where I was gonna say one disappointment of the game is, so there's one mission where it's, you are protecting a bunch of tribes people, and there's gonna be a bunch of things coming down from the, I don't know, from the woods and whatnot. You've done this already. It's in one of those 3, and you're on like a lot of like wood and stuff, like looking over stuff. And it felt like, oh, I'm like, man, we're going to get my Helm's Deep moment. Like we're going to town. But then the whole thing was just layered with the heavy weapons that you could use. And I felt like kind of took the fun, because anytime you're out, the computer's like, here's another one for you. And I was like, oh, I thought this was gonna be a real struggle, and it was really just me shooting it. So maybe there is,
I will say, I was like, oh, this is delicious experience. Like I am taking this XP to the bank. Like, this is such quick kills that I'll take it. But I don't blame you.
Yeah, I would. Well, I felt like it just shouldn't even give me the option, because I'm so like, okay, I'm a busy guy, so like I'm gonna take that option. I valored up and I did the big gun. But it was kind of weird that they just had all these big guns laying around, like, oh, you could just do this. I thought like this was going to be a real kind of war there. So it's almost like it wants to be that, but if you want to take the easy option, which I did, you can. And I'm almost kind of mad that I did, but there's so much to do. That's just like, okay, well, I'm sure at some point in the game I'll be really pushed to the wall of like, you're not going to have any outs, you know?
Yeah. You have an option at the start of the game, you know, after you do your brightness and whatnot. There's like, you can choose explore mode, and I forget the name of the other mode, but I guess this is supposed to be, I don't even really get it, to be honest. It's supposed to be like you can either have, I guess, like a full HUD experience at all times, or you can do explore mode, which is supposed to lessen that, and so you're kind of more exploring to find things. I've had explore mode on. I could not tell you what it does. Like I feel like my HUD is always on. It's always showing me exactly where to go. I always have 100 icons on my screen, so I don't think I understand. Like, I like the idea. I got really excited at first. I'm like, oh, I love this kind of thing in games. I always take away as many HUD options as possible and let me get lost in an open world. But this explore mode did not fulfill what I thought it was when I read the description.
It does nothing. So I was the same thing. I think it's like, is it Quest? Maybe it's Quest Finder that's the other mode, and then there's Explorer mode. Either way, so I had that on at first because I'm like, yeah, I want to have all the icons because I want to know where I'm going, stuff like that. Because at first, because I know we've talked about this many times, either goes to Shishima, so like I had Dylan's voice in my mind. Like I know what Dylan will be picking here, but I'm not doing that. But once I got into the game, I was like, I want all this off. So I went to Explorer mode, did nothing. So what I did though, I deliberately went and turned everything off. The only thing I have that comes up all the time is like the one on the left, which I still want to find to turn off. But if you like have a rock or your potion, stuff like that, that's the only thing. Because once there was so much, but even then, once I was 5 hours in, I was like, this game is so beautiful. This HUD is actually, it is taking me out of it. It is ruining it. Where Death Stranding, I didn't have that because it's kind of sci-fi based, so it kind of feels like,
built into like the character too. Right?
Where this, I get it because you have the focus, so it is built in. But there was just something about this world, so I tried to explore, it didn't work, and I turned everything off. Once I found out, as long as because you can turn the compass. Once I found out you could still it's almost like Ghost of Tsushima, like, press up on the touchpad and then it'll reveal everything. Once I knew that even with the HUD all gone, I could still have the icon marker of like, oh, you're 500 steps away. I turned everything off. So my HUD for the majority of the game, I've had nothing on my screen, and it's been great. Obviously, when you pick up stuff, it locks. If you do the swipe, it brings everything up. But
Right.
yeah, if you haven't done that, I recommend that. Just go physically turn off yourself, and it's much better because those updates, they get annoying. There's so, like, when you're picking up stuff, it's just like one of this. And yeah, I turned it
Right.
all off. The only
Right.
thing that I'm not sure if you've found and I haven't, I hate that oh well, actually no, you wouldn't have this. The PS5, the remote sounds and stuff like that, I haven't found an option to turn that off.
Ooh.
Some games in the past have had that like on an update, but it's really annoying because every time you use that grapple hook, it's loud. It's like, and it's so loud and obnoxious. And I hate the sound design of. I turn them off for almost all the games. So it's like I had to do that with Death Stranding too, like because that baby would come through that remote.
Yeah, I had
and
to turn the volume down for the baby.
Yeah.
It's weird because the PS4 controller still has access to a lot of the stuff, but none of that, like, my controller vibrates and that's it. It hasn't made any sound. So,
it's
and
awful.
I don't think I
You're
have it
lucky.
muted because I remember turning it down for for Death Stranding, but I didn't turn it off. I guess that's actually a good point. Like, did you use the like PS5 adaptive trigger stuff at all?
I did, yeah. I usually
and
have
is it good? Do you like it? Because I guess you probably used that from Ghost of Tsushima, but it's
Yeah.
probably, I'm guessing it's very similar to that.
It's pretty similar. It is weird though, because when I do a bow in Ghost of Tsushima versus here, it's not the exact sensation. So that's a little weird because obviously different developers. I actually, funny enough, prefer the Ghost of Tsushima one because it
Ooh.
feels more like you are actually like you get that strain of when it's tough, the trigger is tough. Where this, you just kind of get like a feeling of it. But it's
Well, I guess you're spamming a lot more arrows in this game too.
100%, right? So I kept it on there, but I wouldn't say it's. I'd say so far the best experience I have had with it was Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima, I originally turned it off, but then I was like, okay, let me try it, and I really enjoyed it. This is not like it's not so little, it's not there, but it's also not too overblown that's annoying me. So maybe that's a good thing. It's right in the middle, but there's only a few times like when you go to bust open a crate, like you can feel like some strain there, but it feels very, I'd say, minimal. But if people, like that, then it's perfect because it doesn't feel like it's a hindrance. Where Ghost of Tsushima, if you didn't like that, I could see people turning it off because it does have like a lot when you pull a rope, there's strain and the archer gets really tough. This, it just gives you like a little pushback and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's fine. So yeah, I am using with that, and it's a fun little rumble pack effect,
Right. Classic. Going back to some open world stuff, so I mentioned this in our kind of opening thoughts, but I felt like the first area was a bit too samey to Zero Dawn. It's still like it looks great, obviously, but I just felt like it was a bit too samey. And so I think the area that stood out to me the most is obviously those. I guess maybe you haven't been to those kind of beaches in the trailers and all that. Yeah, like there is kind of a watery area to the south, like in the first get to the open world, but you haven't really been to the San Francisco deserty stuff yet, right?
No, I've been to some water, but I don't know if I've been to that exact area. But I have been because obviously in the mission, wherever that water was in the first mission that sets you up to go get those three, I've been around there. And then I also did some sort of saving people at like a lagoon or something like that and everything. So no, I don't think I've gone there yet.
Well, that area looks great as you would expect. I don't really remember there being a swampy area in Zero Dawn. Like I know there's jungle and obviously rivers and stuff. I don't really remember like a marshy land, but the marsh area in this game is cool. I think for me the part that stands out the most though is the desert. Obviously there's kind of like desert-y areas in the first game, but in this one they incorporate those same snow effects where you're stomping around, you can see your footsteps, and I just love that. It looks great. Unfortunately, the caveat with that is that your mount doesn't make any footprints, or at least I haven't noticed that. Maybe it's like a visual thing, but it doesn't actually like pad into the sand or anything. But that's really cool. But yeah, just the desert looks great. You also, I guess you haven't done the mission where you go to Vegas, but they talk about
No,
it.
I'm excited.
To the ruins of Vegas, and that area is just amazing. Just amazing design there all around. So I think to me the desert is the center area. The jungle is great. It's we've seen jungle in the first game a lot. It's more fun jungle area. It's awesome. Is there an area in the open world that stands out to you so far?
No, like I think I'd agree with you. The desert, because the desert to me, because there is some kind of rock-like landscape in the first game. That's almost where you
Yeah.
end it primarily. So I was like, oh, this might be a little too samey. But once you get further in, it felt like I was in a Mad Max video game. Now I know they made the Mad Max video game, but it felt literally like they just took, okay, we're gonna take that game, those maps from there, and put it here. Especially there's some like fortresses you come across, and the design is so cool. That place is the most where you look and you're just like, I want to see what that is. And there's sometimes where it's nothing, it's just abandoned, it's broken down, but it feels like I'm in the middle of Mad Max. So that's great. And you shout out too before is Plain Song, because it's just like there's not too much as far as exploration as the free world, but just once you get there and the bases and stuff like that, it does kind of feel like you're in Navi Avatar world a little bit. But it's really cool because it feels that like one big thing in this Myers spoil, but I feel like in this game it's a lot about different tribes and clans of people and them working together. How can they do that with so many differences? And I think it's good when you show all the locations, not all, but like lots of locations that you go to a difference, because you can see that also resembles or symbolizes the differences in the people as well. And you meet a lot of that. There's a lot of different tribes, people and stuff like that. But yeah, the desert, Plain Sun, and so far, yeah, I've liked. I went up to the kind of winterscape, and that was fun. Like obviously, it's just a lot of snow. But it's just, it's always good to be there. And I love anytime we're in snow and stuff like that in a game, if it's done well. And in this game, it's gorgeous. So
Definitely. Yeah, I wanted to talk more about the towns, because to me, that honestly might be like my favorite thing about this game so far. I think they did such an amazing job with the towns that make it feel like real places. I feel like they cranked up the amount of NPCs, and that's not what's tanking my frame rate. It's other things that's tanking the frame rate. But especially, in Plain Song, there's at one point where I just like, yeah, man, I just love Plain Song. That is one of my favorite video game towns ever, I think. Like, that is such a cool area. Just the visuals of it, the color scheme, the fact that it's just, like, suspended high in the air. I love, too, that they kind of have the farms surrounding it, and they're using that one machine that's kind of like a plow. Like, that just, as a world-building thing, it's great to have, like, I don't think enough games do that, where it's like, how does this town get food? And, like, that, obviously, it shows that here's all our farms that we have around here, surrounded by water and stuff like that. But yeah, like one time I was walking through Plain Song, and I just went up to the shop area, and just like 20 kids just were running around, and it's like, man, that feels cool. There's like this kind of quote unquote elementary school happening here. There's people just chilling, hanging out, doing nothing, people having a bath, people doing their shop stuff, people working on things, people just like skinning fish, whatever. Like, there's just so much personality in this like living, breathing spaces. And yes, you can't really talk to these people, or you can like greet them and you'll get some stock line, but
it's still cool. It still fills the world.
It's really cool. And yeah, like obviously there's multiple shops in every place. There's your chef that you can get stuff from. You can do your paints, and you can dye your clothing. They added Machine Strike. We'll talk about Machine Strike in a bit. They have the arena. They brought, I think there was an arena kind of thing in the first game. Or maybe
so,
not. There
this
was
feels
the hunting
a lot more
lodges,
advanced. Yeah, I think
it seems like there's more of them, or there's just maybe more towns in general in this
there's
game.
definitely the lodges, because there's the lodges and just like the arrow, like whatever, like challenges and whatnot. I always skip those, because those are like for me the last thing I do in the game, because I don't really have any interest of like, oh, can you shoot these targets in 30 seconds? It's like, maybe I can, but I'll get to that. Like that's not what I'm really here for. But yeah, if they had I don't think they did, because I feel like in one of the skill trees they added a lot to the melee options, where I didn't feel it was in the first game. Because in this game, I will say, maybe I should even show this at the beginning of when we're talking about enemies and stuff like that, it definitely feels a lot more, you're fighting a lot more humans this time around, or people that are on foot. So I would imagine there wasn't anything this diverse as far as the fighting camps or stuff like that, or the fight. And I haven't really done much of them yet, because honestly I kind of didn't even unlock any of that when
like the content of it is gated behind upgrading the skill tree, which I think is cool. But and then also me, who's put 1 or 2 points into that tree, I haven't I did like the ones in Chain Scrape, but that's about it so far.
And even and it's tough, because I enjoy it, but I still, because they added some things where it's like, you hit the right bumper, R1 3 times, and then the right trigger, and it's a combo. It still feels very clunky. I think that's one thing they could have really improved a lot more on, is if they were going to enforce a lot more human stuff. And maybe I'll feel differently when we talk about this again in a couple of weeks and I get more down that skill tree. But just even the way Aloy moves when she fights, it does not feel...
She's a bit too wily, man. She swings so hard. It's very hard to control her or feel like you Like I'm just always gonna prefer the ranged combat. Is what it comes down to.
And like I said, this is something that I'm reserving for judgment. I'm just saying, as right now, as I have less skills, but even when I've unlocked them, it feels almost very just kind of like movie to game adaptation, where it's like your heavy attack is just this very generic move and stuff like that. You know, it doesn't feel fun to play with that. And I'm hoping, and that's why right now I'm hitting that side as much upgrades as I can, because I'm hoping, oh, it will feel very natural, will feel very fluid. But it doesn't. The same way as like you're talking about with Ghost of Tsushima, range isn't its main thing, but that still feels good. So with Ghost, it's like both of them feel good. Where this, to me, it's just the range. I don't know if I would say the melee feels bad, but if whatever the tier is like just above that, it is that, because it doesn't feel good to play with. Other than if you're doing a sneak critical strike, you know, which I wouldn't really count.
Yeah, and obviously, it's hard because we haven't gone down that skill tree. So maybe it feels really good once you have that stuff. But right now, to me, it feels like the melee combat in the first game was like version 1.0, and it wasn't really that good. And this time it's like just 1.5. Like they didn't really evolve it to that next level yet.
Yeah.
And so, it's just... And you know, if it doesn't feel good in its base form, then I'm not really going to be motivated to want to spend my hard-earned skill points over there to put more skill points into it. But I think the idea of gating the arena content behind getting these upgrades is an interesting idea. And maybe that would work better if you were kind of slowly chipping away at that skill tree instead of, like, for me at this point, it's probably gonna be like, well, I've done all the other skill trees or got everything I wanted from them, so I'll just kind of fill out some of this stuff now, and I'd get it all at once. Whereas if you're just kind of slowly going through and unlocking new challenges as you're slowly going through the tree, maybe that's how it was designed. And I guess if you just didn't do that, you just didn't do that. But yeah, I mean, I think they also added armor to the human enemies. Like, they didn't have that before, or at least they didn't have breakable armor on the enemies in the first game, right?
They're like the machines where you can chip away at them. And
I don't remember the shields in Zero Dawn if enemies had a shield. But
if they do, it might have been like one boss or something like that. But yeah, I think they like I said, that you do fight more humans, and that's where it's, you know, like you have the camps, and like I said, I don't know. I definitely just still stick to range. That's how I'd say the best way. And you just shoot it out, and that is some of the funnest moments. So I will say is there's times where this rebel tribe will come up on a bunch of hills and they're down you, and you're literally, it felt like me in a movie where I'm shooting and then I use the tree for coverage and it's working, and like it does feel like, okay, I can actually use my environment, because sometimes games program that way where it's almost like the bad guys are going to hit you no matter what unless you dodge. You know, you can't use this as cover. But between rocks and stuff like this, and it's great when I'm behind a rock, I'm setting up a little trap and I like bait them. I will say I feel like the animals really resist the tripwire traps. Like I felt in the first game, I could just throw them down, they run at me. There's so many times, whether it is on purpose they want to make them smart or it's just a game flaw or something, I don't know. But they just will not, they don't run through them like they used to.
I don't think I guess I haven't had that experience. One thing I've noticed though is that it seems like the limit of traps you can have at a time is like greatly reduced, and then they put it into like certain outfit. Well, like you can put 2 more traps down, and then in the skill tree you can get more traps. But I think by default you can only put 2 traps down on like all the ground
I think
in
so.
general.
You're right. Yeah,
and that's nothing. So I think I remember in the first game just like setting up an area with like 10 traps, or maybe it wasn't 10, but it felt like just a shit ton of traps.
You were ready
and then you
to
could
go.
just like and then you would start that boss fight and then just kind of have a nice advantage. Going back, so I talked about this. Falls Edge is another great town. I love it. I don't think you've been there yet, probably, so I won't say why, but it's really beautiful.
Is that, well, yeah, I can't remember.
I don't know why you would have been there yet if based on where
Okay.
you told me you'd be in the main story, unless you really explored pretty far to the west. But
the other one I would shout out to is, I can't remember, I won't say what it is, but when you go to have to do those 3 things, that first one that's the lowest level, I really like that one's cool because it feels like a very, I don't know, like it feels almost like Green Knighty in a way, where we talk about a little bit, where there's lots of moss, it's lots of stones and everything. But I absolutely love the look of the people there, especially like the main chief there.
Right.
Oh my goodness! If I want that guy to be in a God of War game so I could play or fight him, like, and his voice, like, so I loved the look of the people. Where there's some people you get to, it's like their hair is crazy. Like I would not want to rock this look at all, but they had like the blue and white makeup, and their armor was very kind of, it was very bright. There is a lot of bright colors, but that's when I show. But yeah, I don't think I've been to the Edge place you're talking about.
yeah, you'll get there. It's really it's really nice. I'll leave it at that. And then going back to Chain Scrape, I think that's a great town, great starting town. I really liked it. There's once again a lot to do.
Yeah.
I like the believability of it, and I mean that tavern. I love that tavern. Like when you go in. And there's just like this kind of stock sound of people cheering, hooting, hollering, but it actually feels realistic because there's so many people in this bar. And when I first went in there, I just spent some time I was just walking around. I'd look at the table, and one table has like these 4 friends, and they're like cheersing, having this discussion. At this other table, someone's pouring a drink for their friend. Other people are like playing the game. People are having dinner. Like they're just, I don't know, such a living, breathing space that bar was. So I love that part of Chain Scrape as well. And I like that it's kind of like a rugged, feels like almost like a western, like a western town on like, I don't know, just kind of getting started, just kind of getting their bearings. Let's talk. Okay, so I want to know your thoughts on Machine Strike, because I know back in Witcher you're a big fan of Gwent, and when you messaged me early on when we were talking about this, you're like, "Ooh, there's this game. It's like Gwent, and you said you should do it because it has good rewards." Now you didn't really mention if you liked the game or if you're just doing it for the rewards. So what do you think of Machine Strike? First of all, as an addition, I mean, obviously that's great that they add some kind of bar mini game, and then every town you go into, there's someone new you can challenge there, and you get rewards for it. That's a great system. But what do you think of the game itself?
Yeah, so if anyone's still listening this far, because we haven't given any story spoilers, if you have not picked up the game or you're playing it, definitely find those and play those, because there's like one of the last ones, it's like you win, you get 250 metal shards, and sometimes that's as much as like a bow. So once I found that out, the only
skill points too if you like complete a certain amount of them. You can get some really sick rewards for doing it.
Yeah, because it all depends, because there's one camp I went to where it was just pure, you either got pieces or like a tire. So it's like, I'm not going to do any of this because I was trying to get like levels up. So I will say same thing. Look at what they have, but especially money wise, that's how I got so much. So yeah, when I saw, because Emily knows how much I like Gwent, and she was sitting there because the kids were at home, but she was reading a book, and then I'm doing this. I was like, oh man, look at this. There's a game within a game that's like right up Trass's alley. So right when they started explaining it, I was frothing at the mouth. I couldn't wait to go. Now, I will say this game is, to me, I think once I play it more, it's going to be more simpler than Gwent, but on the surface does not feel that way. I'm getting it a bit more now, but I want to play it more, but I want to, this is one where once I finish the main campaign, I'm going to go back to every camp that has Machine Strike, and it's probably going to be the first thing I do. It's a fun little system. I love, like you said, it's cool it's in there, but it's also just a fun world building technique that these are what these people are doing. It's cool that you can collect these pieces, find them around, these like strike pieces. I like the variety as they're based on the machines, and they all have the different, you can pretty much, if people don't know, it's just a board, the basic board, it's just a board, and it's very much just like chess. That's what it is, where it's like, okay, this pieces can move 2 ways. They can, obviously it's a little bit, quite a bit different actually, but it's like you can attack twice with this. And then they introduce terrains where the board can be layered or have levels to it. So it's like if you're on the highest terrain, which is like metal rubble or something like that, like your attack goes up to 4. So it's really fun. It was interesting that first time because I saw the money. I played a bunch of it, and on the medium tier, I got destroyed so much over and over. I could not beat this lady. And then the hard tier, I got on my first one. So I was like, sometimes it's just luck of the dice, but no, I really like it. I love the system where you have your, let's say, 6 pieces, and you can only move 2 per turn, but you can kind of get a third turn in there. But if you do, you got to hurt your own self.
Yeah.
I think the thing that throws me off, which I don't know if I like, I think I dislike this, where how you win is actually just you getting points and not on the board. So there's times where, like, this lady beat me. She only had 1 piece, and I still had 3, but because she had, like, taken more out than me, she won. So I don't actually like the winning system. I wish it was like a battleship where you fought to the death, and that's kind of where I got to rewire myself, because with Gwent, I always play that way. Because it doesn't matter if you have 3 weak guys. If you got 3 weak guys versus 1 piece, it's over for that person. But this, I mean, that's their way on purpose. It's more about you want to get the strikes, you know?
Yeah.
No pun intended.
There is I like the balance of it too, though, where you're the pieces that because you choose your deck, so to speak, and I think it's like you have 8 pieces, and each piece has, you know, different stats and whatnot, and then they each have like a reward for if it dies. So if I mean, if you load up your deck with just a few pieces that all have high value, then you can you can definitely get cheesed and like lose easier. Where if you put a couple 1-star guys in there that are obviously going to be weaker, but then you can't just get bopped as easily and lose in a whim. Especially when you're talking about with the overload or over whatever it's called system, you can kind of go for a quick win, and even if it would cost you your piece, you can get that quick W.
Yeah. I mean, explain that the sacrifice is sometimes worth it. You know,
exactly.
So.
I like the game. I think it's fun. I think there's some good dynamic to it. I think one of my critiques of it would be that the visuals of it, all the pieces look very samey, so it's hard for me at a glance to 100%. Tell what each piece does. And it's cool, like, you know, the Glint Hawk has like huge movement and less HP, but it's like the Glint Hawk looks exact same as that little beaver one, and so you kind of have to hover over each thing and say, okay,
paint.
what damage, like how far can these guys get? What kind of damage do they do? What terrains are they looking for? So I think that's a bit weird. I like the rewards. I like the first 3 towns I went to. Like if you beat a beginner level Machine Strike player, you can get 2 skill points. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Two skill points nowadays is like absolutely nothing. You get that for like completing any old mission, but at the time that was like a lot. So the first 3 towns I definitely did it, and then I found since then, like each new town I'm going to, I'm not playing the game, and I think I might go back to it. And I like that you can unlock new pieces. From you can buy them from people, or you can like find them maybe from some other random quest, and then you can use that to build a deck. So I think when I'm further in, and I want to come back to that, I think for the sake of this review today, I played enough of it to talk about it, and I didn't really want to dive too much deeper into it. But it is fun. It's a great addition, obviously, and I like that it adds a little bit more character to each town. And I like it's just a thing that across the whole Forbidden West, like people play this game, and it's kind of like a point of unifying each other and gamifying like this horrendous world that they live in at times. And maybe my last critique of it is that I feel like you can cheese the game pretty hard. Like I feel like if you just sit in a corner and you don't line up your pieces so that if you can kind of like hit someone, if it would knock back a piece into one of your pieces and both of them get damaged. If you just kind of camp in a corner and don't line up your pieces so you're going to get bopped like that, I feel like you can kind of cheese the game, and the CPUs aren't really that smart, or at least, like I said, I've only done the early level ones, so maybe they get smarter, or maybe their pieces just get stronger, but they'll just come in and they'll just like flood in, and you can kind of bop them. I still lost a few times, even maybe trying some of that strategy, but I think it's great addition. Every open world game should have little mini games like this, and this is more than a mini game. This is a game within a game. This is like a game you'd find on Steam for like $10-15, and and like that's great that they put like that much effort into it, and they didn't have anything like that in the first game, so I'm grateful for that addition.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love all that stuff. So I'm excited to dive in. Same thing as you. I didn't dive as deep because of the review, but I will be doing that again, and I'm excited to get more some pieces. I love the Rams. Rams, like those are my go-tos, you know. But I agree with you, they should even just color the pieces, because there's so many times where I lost them, like, oh, that was a Ram. I thought that was a melee. There's just going to be
so many that maybe they'd run out of colors, but there's something they could, and like they have it so you can see like where they're weak, or where they, you know, like their vulnerable side.
Armored,
you can see that at a glance and stuff, but could use a little bit of work on the visual sense. Let's take another ad break. We'll come back and talk about, I still have so many notes, so I think this might be a nice juicy long one. Okay, let's take a quick break. All right, and we are back. We just talked about Machine Strike. I want to talk, so some of the side questy things is kind of somewhat related. You come into a town, there'll be someone who I have a rumor to share. And
there's one lady that will not shut up every time I go.
They always do it.
There.
It's like it keeps generating them.
Yeah. I thought you'd beat one and then you'd get another rumor. No, it's just like, this woman's giving me 5 rumors. It's like, I have to save this world. You know, I don't have time for your rumors.
I think it's weird. Like, you sit on this little bench next to someone, and Aloy sits there like a proper young, kid in elementary school.
Sit down, wee lad, and listen to my rumor.
They didn't animate her face to do anything as she's reacting to this, so she always just sits there with a blank face, just looking at this person with her eye. Like, her face is forward, but her eyes are looking at them. It's really strange.
I'll look
and
into that.
Honestly, I just like you get maybe a good quest from there, but each time it's just like they talk a few sentences and they're like, there's an enemy camp nearby. I'm like, really? Like, you got to sit me down and tell me about this, and like, this is a rumor. This is, like, I know there's an enemy camp nearby. It just is weird. I like the idea. I just think the execution was a bit off on the inclusion of of rumors there.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It does not feel. At first, it was cool, but then it was just okay. This feels kind of
Hmm.
tacky and cheesy. I think what they're going for, and that's like they do a lot of things good as a company, meaning Rockstar. But the whole like one example I have is Red Dead 2. They have the whole like strangers things, right? The thing with them though is they do in such a seamless way that one, you never really know if it's a main story or if it's the side. Like it just can happen. But two,
Hmm.
the way they will tell the stories or set them up, they feel much more intriguing. Where you go, oh, I really want to see what's going on here. Like I remember this one thing in Red Dead 2 where they set up like there was like a ghost in the forest, and then once you go into it, you explain what it actually is. But just the setup is like, man, I do have
Yeah.
to divert because I gotta go look into this. This is just like. It literally will start that way, like, oh, there's been some whispering, some rumbling, some war cries. I think there's a camp right there. Like they'll just it's like, oh, don't tell me, like, give some intrigue, and then it just it's all right. It's not it is very like gamey. It is just like, okay, we're gonna give you a bunch of side quests here you go. And I was just surprised how much I thought one rumor and be done, but no, this
Yeah.
woman or guy just sits in one spot and just tells everybody all this stuff. So
This one lady too, like right near. I'll just say this without spoiling the story thing, but there's a place you're going to often, and there's this one lady nearby this, so I'm like always going through this location, and every time I walk by, she's like, "Hey, Outlander, come
yeah.
and sit with me. I have a story to tell."
Is she with another guy there too?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
I get the same one.
Yeah,
She has
okay.
so many stories. It's just like,
It's
how
too
can you
much.
get this? It's just you two up here. Like it's
Yeah,
because they're off by them side too. It's not like
yeah,
other places at camp, but
yeah.
she's right, I guess. So
It's weird. And then I'll say this: so I haven't done tons of side missions. I've done a few. There's one character returning from the first game. I've kind of done her longer side quest, and I've done some other ones as well. But I do feel like when you're going through the town, and there's always like the little green exclamation mark, you talk to people. I feel like 80 to 85% of those are my brother, my friend, some person I know has
yeah,
gone missing. Can you go find them? And I think they just, it could be just a luck of the draw thing. Like the people I do end up talking to are the ones who are saying these things. But it also could just be that they're using the same hook to get you into the side quest a little too often. I think that's a case where you don't need to have as many quests as you have in these kind of games. I know people want more content, but if you trim that stuff down and just make like each side quest really good, obviously,
yes,
that's a simplification in a way. But I just feel like at least like most of these hooks for these side quests, my log is filling up with things, and I could not care less about any of them. That's not true. I don't care about like probably 90% of them. That's a truthful number, because they all just have the same boring hook that doesn't get me. And the ones that do stand out then are the ones I'm interested in and actually want to do those. But it is also feeling really weird from a character perspective that, oh, this person's probably in peril and might die if I don't save them. But it's such a generic, boring quest that I don't want to do it. And so it feels kind of anti-Aloy like as well in a way.
yeah.
So, like I said, I haven't done tons of these, so maybe they are fruitful. Maybe there's more to them. Maybe they are more in depth. Maybe there's a twist in there. That's great. I'm sure some of them are, but for the most part, I can't say there's many side quests that have stood out to me so far.
Well, and that's almost what I was referring to at the beginning, where this sometimes just feels like a massive, large DLC for Horizon 1, because
Yeah.
and maybe there are further in, but I'm having the same experience of you where I just don't really want to do many of them. I'm not implied to, like, other than, okay, this is going to be fun. I'm sure there'll be an enemy type. I don't think it's going to be bad. Don't get me wrong, but it's not that sudden rush. And yeah, I love it's a minor spoiler for something, but someone just talking about, like, oh, my grandson, I've been looking, can you help me? And they're like, yeah, I'll wait for you at Hillcrest. And it's like, man, I said to Emily, like, you're not going to see me at Hillcrest for about a week, lady. Like, because, like, some of these, it is, and that's where this has always been a video game problem, right? Because technically, Aloy shouldn't be doing any of these side quests, because the main quest of the first game was the world's at peril and you save the world, right? A very minor spoiler, but the game literally starts with, no, the world is back in peril and you are the one person that can save it. And I almost, and we'll get more on that when we get in the story, I wish they didn't do that, because it makes me feel less believable that whether it is save my grandson or whether it's like help me make this armor, Aloy should not be doing any of this, because she should just be focused on, at any moment we could be done. Like, we need to figure this out. So it's kind of a weird, you have to kind of throw that suspension of disbelief. But the side quests, yeah, in general, it's just not, and that's where, like I said, it sounds bad, but I just don't know if a third one comes out, if I'm going to be employed, because the side quests have not been really like, oh, I feel like this is such a great world for that aspect. It is the exploration, it is the the visuals, it is seeing what's over there in the smoke and being like in awe. But the actual stories, I think I agree with you 100%, where and I say this is like not to be mean, but not as a compliment, where it feels like a Ubisoft game with it's this and there's just a bunch of side quests. Here you go, and it's just one after the other and after other, and that's why what I use the example of like in GTA and Red Dead. There's so many side quests that just like burned a hole in my mind, and Knights of Old Republic, those games like and even as recent Witcher, where there's some really good ones where I remember there's one that has nothing to do with the main story, and I wasn't in tears, but it was just like super emotional, like, man, this is really messed up. Like it to me, what happens is these things, because it's funny, there's a bar for all your missions, right? And one of them is errands, but they all kind of start feeling like errands, and that's what you should. They should have some real good story base, and they just haven't yet. So I hope when I come back on here and we do like a a catch up on Horizon, I hope we have some different experiences, like, oh, this one. But there has anyone that's like stuck out has been funny reasons. As far as I can't remember, she's from the first game. I'm not sure if you were dealing with this too. It's a woman that she's like looking for maybe romantic interest and stuff like that.
Talana,
yeah, I really like her, but the only reason it stuck out to me was like because she's fighting these beasts. It's a modest boy, and then she's like, "Hey, jump in the fun, Aloy." And I did that, and I like got killed in 2 hits. And I just thought about Aloy's story. Like, imagine her friend was like, "Take him," and if Aloy just died in front of her. So like, all the things have been kind of like, or what I told you when I was like in a conversation, they're getting shot on the side. They've been memorable because of game experiences and not because of story experiences. And
yes.
Yeah,
and I you brought up something too of like the urgency of the story, and that's something that these open world games fail all the time. Like Fallout 4 is such a big offender of that, where it's like your son is out there, and you're gonna go fuck around finding this other person's son. Like there's a side quest where you can find someone's like sibling, whatever.
You want this crab stew? Yeah, sure. I'll get to my son later.
And I don't know. It's a weird. There is solutions to it. Like for example, the point I'm at in the story. There's kind of this thing where this character's like, okay, I need some time to get ready for this, to do this thing. And that's not true. Like I could go start the quest right now and we can skip that. But at least they say this line, and that gives me some like the feeling as Aloy that, okay, I can go off and do some stuff. And now that's what I'm going to do. I'm at a point where in the main story where I actually want to go back and catch up on some side quests that are pertinent to the characters that I care about now. And that's great that it kind of sets you up for that. Like that's something too that I love about Morrowind. Early on in the main story of Morrowind, you go talk to this guy who's your quest giver, and he's like, verbatim, he pretty much says like, "You suck. Here, take some money. Go join a guild or two. Go get leveled up. Like you need to get trained up before we go ahead with this kind of thing." And that's great because then you can use that if you're role playing the game to go do whatever the fuck you want. But then you could also just come back in a bit and continue it. Or I even feel like Ghost of Tsushima.
I was just about to say that
it is a very much similar thing. But just the way the narrative is designed and the nature of these characters and like the hopelessness of, and like there's not many people who can do these things other than you. To me, it feels much better in that game to like spend. Okay, I'm going to spend 10 minutes as Jin to go help this guy save his friend. And I think it's because they maybe just scale back the quantity. There is a lot to do in that game, but I feel like each settlement you go to doesn't have 3 generic quests like this. Instead, like each settlement has maybe one slightly better quest, even though a lot of them do fall back into that same thing of just filling out the quantity of the hours that you have access to. But there's something about the narrative of Ghost of Tsushima that did it just a bit better than this game has so far.
Well, I think it's like you point out between like this and Fallout 4, when you have an open world game and you give the character a plot that is so urgent, it is a little world breaking and I think with this game that they could have, like I said, the world is in peril. They could have saved that a little longer. They didn't have to give it to you right away, but it's literally within the first oh no, we're still in trouble. And I wish they held off of maybe the midway point. Aloy does it because at the beginning you just explain because it's like, okay, there's still evil machines out there. There's still evil doers out there. I'm just gonna go out, explore, and be the champion and stuff like that, or even like Fallout 4. Once you introduce your son's missing, maybe you should do that later on because then you could I'm just finding my way in the wasteland. So Ghost of Tsushima, you had a big bad, but you never had this. They could strike at any moment and burn this entire place to the ground. No, it was just you're kind of going around taking them out side by side, and that's thing with like you don't feel that way with the robots because you'll take 50 of them out. You'll be gone for an hour. You come back and they're just gone, right? So it doesn't feel like a clear. In most spots, it doesn't feel like a clearing of something. So,
yeah, there's been a couple missions where, like, there's one mission where eventually it started with one thing. I got roped along. I ended up doing a bunch of things for this guy, and eventually I had to fight like a Thunderjaw, and it was just fucking me up. It was destroying me, and so I was like, I'm not gonna do this right now. I just
Yeah.
left. I just left the guy there. I went off, played the game for another 15
Ew.
hours. I came back to this quest. He's still fighting that Thunderjaw.
Oh,
I'm
really?
strong enough now. I killed the Thunderjaw in like a second, and so I like that.
I've been
I like
holding
that
it
you can-
off for you.
I like that you can pick up a quest just randomly. That also happened
Mhm.
with another character where we had to go fight these things, and I'm like, I'm not strong enough for these. I didn't even unselect the quest. I just went the other way and left. And yeah, you can just come back and pick those up. So I like that. Even if that doesn't make story sense, that's a good gameplay thing. And Ghost of Tsushima
Yeah.
did that as well. Okay, a couple other things. So have you used the cooking at all? Have you cooked a single thing in this game? I did the tutorial one, or like the chain scrape thing. I have not used it since. I timed bonuses in a game like this, just not my thing. I don't know if I'm ever going to use this. Maybe if there's like a really hard boss at some point, I could try and set up, but I just think I'd find other solutions than
Yeah,
to get some cooking done.
here's one thing I will say. People will be shocked, but again, when you've referred to it 5 years ago, I did play this and Breath of the Wild back to back at the same time, so it was quite an experience. That's something they should have totally ripped off, was
Yep.
the cooking system, because
the
I
cooking
don't
Breath of
care
the Wild.
about this at all. The same thing when you're talking about time things. If it was the cooking system or something like in Breath of the Wild, I would do that, because not only is it just kind of easier, it just feels more satisfying, but it is easier. Like, imagine if that campfire you had and you'd collect all the stuff, just cook something up for you, then I would feel like, okay, cool. I already have it in my pack. I'll cook it, use it.
Yeah.
Here we go. Whether it's actual fuel for you to like heal up, or like you said, time bonuses. For me to like, I'm going to go get a bird. I'm going to go get this. I'm not doing any of
Plus,
that. I'm
like,
really
you can
not.
only activate it, as far as I can tell, like from a town. Like you have to go to a chef to do it, right?
Yes.
Like if you could do it from any camp, that would, and like you could into the town, you could learn recipes from a chef, or each chef has a signature dish or something that has some bonus. But it feels like, I don't think that was in the first game, and I just don't know. Like there's
No.
even like there's potions. I've never used a potion. Like I don't know. There's just certain things that that there's like tools you give that just feel a bit extraneous to me.
Well, it's funny you say, because the potions I have used when I've been poisoned a couple times, they're good because they kind of give you almost like a even bigger health bar. Like they give you, they
Right.
double up. But I was gonna say, like between even some of the weapon customizations, between some of the upgrades you can do to your satchels or stuff like that, I guess that's maybe the problem where I updated my satchel once and I really haven't to, because so I'm still just at the stock 20 arrows, but for me it's just like I just recraft them in the middle of a battle. It freezes time. It's pretty easy, and it does that thing where it'll jump up by 5/5. I haven't felt and this is where I think this is a con for me again in the game, where it's all stuff that's really good. At its base, it's good, but to me, it's missing that jump to the really greatness, as far as like a game that's gonna stand out for years and years, instead of just being, okay, I loved my time there, but it's not gonna be something like when Knights of the Old Republic. I still talk about it to this day, right? Where I was kind of hoping this would be that. Between the food, between the satchels, between the weapons, there's so much stuff, and even you kind of pointed out, and sometimes I push back on you, but even with the skill tree, I think in this game too, there's so much stuff that I don't feel like I need to do. Like I literally, and that's where I kind of took a break.
Let's come back to
today.
the skill tree in 1 second.
Okay, so I'll save that. But
just to jump on the satchel thing, like for me, that's been like a very annoying thing where I'm like, I really want to upgrade these things. I don't like how little I can have at a time. I don't want to spend my time, refilling during a battle. I want to just like have one full set good to go for a battle. So I've spent like a lot of time now hunting and getting all those pelts and whatnot, but it's like, it's not guaranteed. Like if you kill an animal, you have like, you can get like one of 3 things from
and
them.
that's why I haven't
so
done it. Yeah.
It's very grindy. It's very annoying. And that's one of those things, like, man, I did this enough in the first game. I do not want to do this again. And it also feels weird narratively that we're in this perilous world where like life is quickly going away, and Aloy's out here just like murking animals left and right, and like especially in the opening.
Aloy's a very questionable character this game. I'm gonna say.
In the opening, there's a fox that's like stuck in this like poisonous oak kind of thing, and it's like dying, and Aloy's like really sad. She's trying to save it. But 2 hours later, I'm out here just killing foxes left, right, and center because I need their fucking pelt.
You need me to skin that fox? I'll do it for you. Yeah,
so it's weird. It doesn't feel like it fits the character super well, and it's very grind. Like that's really the only thing in this game that is very grindy, and I don't know. It's a cool idea. Once again, I just feel like the execution of it, at least maybe from a sequel standpoint, like I was cool with it in the first game, but I feel like let's revamp that and make that a whole new system in this game. Just let me just buy them. I don't want to have to go and collect all these annoying things.
And so leaving the skill tree aside, everything else, that's where I feel is another flaw for the game for me. Is I feel that I probably still have a lot to go of the in general game for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Story, like I said, I maybe feel like I got like a 55-40% somewhere in there. But the problem is, I feel like I don't need to get that stew. I don't need to get a satchel. I don't need to get any more bows, because I feel like I could have everything other than some like, sure, I may bump into a robot that's going to be a much higher level, right? But it's just going to take more time to beat it. I don't feel there's anything right now. I feel like I have everything that I could need for the rest of the game. So I'm not really feeling a need to, I need this. And I feel like that's a flaw for me. And that's where maybe I put it. I was planning on playing a bit longer today, but I put it down because I just feel like, it's just too much of the same right now. So I'm going to take a break. I'm going to probably come back to it like tomorrow, the next day. I need that, especially the whole weekend I was going through. But it feels weird to me where I'm at a place where I still feel like I have tons of game to play, but I don't really feel like I need anything else. And that's where I felt like, do I need, when a third one comes out, I was like, I don't know if I'll need more. Because if the third one's going to be like this, because kind of more of the same, I was wanting a bit more of stuff, whether it was the cooking, whether it's the satchel stuff. That's why I haven't done it, because I don't want to waste time looking for animals and stuff like that and just feel, I could have been doing a mission. And at some point, there could be a character that might just give it to me too. So I'm just going to wait till that happens and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's also just like if you are anywhere and you whip out your focus, like whatever animals would spawn in that area, there's like 3 to 4 of them. And then if you walk 50 feet and you do it again, like it just doesn't feel like a realistic thing either, right? Like it just very much generates the same amount based on where you are at any given time. Okay, here's another big gripe of mine that is, I feel like, very much the sequelizing part of it, where like, man, I am sick of picking things up. I don't like how much, like, I don't know how many hours I've spent, or it's probably not hours, but I don't know how many minutes of just like pure time I've spent just picking up medicinal herbs, picking up blueberries. And for me, the really annoying one is when you're looting machines or chests and stuff like that. You have to hold the Y button down, and then you have to, in my case, I hit Y again to take all. When are you ever not going to take all? Like, you have an infinite stash. You have an infinite, well, your inventory is not
Talk
infinite,
about game breaking.
Infinite. I think you have an infinite stash. At least I have.
You do, but that's the weird thing. Like, again, I'm so torn, because from like the ease of access, it's great that I can get as much berries as I want, and it's going to go into a stash. But the thing is, for people, if you're not playing the game, you get the berries, and let's say Dylan can only hold 10 berries. But then if he gets to 30, they just automatically, like, magically ship the other 20 to a stash somewhere you have somewhere. And that's where it's like, I like it for the ease of access, but then because at that point, why even make it full for you? Why is there a cap that you should have?
Well, it doesn't even make sense either, because if you're out in a random camp in the wilderness and you go to a workbench to build some stuff, it'll just, whatever you had back in your stash inventory, even if there's no stash at this camp, like you have access to it for the sake of building, which of course, like obviously that's great. If it wasn't, that would be super annoying.
Yeah.
But it's then like, well, what is the point? I know like there's probably something with like the performance of the game and not keeping too many things on hand or something like that. But I think for me, it's just like the act of looting. Like I went through the settings because I was trying to find like, is there a way that I don't have to hold Y every time? Like, can I just quickly open this up? Or like, why not just go up to a robot and hit Y and just instantly loot all their stuff? It's so annoying. And there is, in the options, there is, specifically in the accessibility thing, because some people struggle to like hold a button down for a long period of time, right? So you can do that for a lot of things. So you like for the bow, for example, instead of having to hold it, you could just click a button to toggle it, right? And there is options for that. Like I did that for reloading actually. So I just open up the weapon wheel and then I just hit Y on whatever my arrow is, and then we'll just go through how many times I need to craft. It automatically does that. I'd highly recommend doing that instead of having to hold. But it doesn't have that option for looting, and that's the thing you're using way more than anything else. Or probably not as much as using your bow, but you use it so much, and like that should be something in the skill tree, honestly. Like just put quick looting, or when you run over berries you automatically pick them up or something like that. Because I'm also finding too, I got so annoyed with that I stopped doing it, but then it didn't take very long before I was like out of shit, and I'm like, well, okay, well I have to do this. Like there's no solution around this.
So I felt
you can buy some things from base, but like realistically you're just gonna have to pick up those berries when you run by them, or go out of your way to pick up some more sticks every once in a while. And it's just tedious, man. Like I think I'm bored with it as a sequel thing. I don't remember complaining about that in the first game, but I've just done enough of it now. I've done it in Ghost of Tsushima. I've done it in all these other open world games. 5 years later, I'm fucking sick of looting these robots. Just give me the loot. let me, make it so I have to
Give
walk
me
over to
the
them,
loot.
but I don't want to have to click all these buttons, man. Driving
Dylan
me
sounded
nuts.
like a Western outlaw. Give me the loot.
Give me the loot. Let's talk about the skill tree now. Take it away on the skill tree, because I think. Well, I will say so. Thinking back in time, I remember complaining a lot about the skill tree in the first game. I
Yeah.
think you were less passionately against it than I was. But where are you at this time with the skill tree?
Well, it's just much like the HUD. Anytime I open the skill tree, I have Dylan Muss's voice in my head. I'm like, oh, because I know how he feels about skill trees. He needs a good skill tree, and that's why I hope the remake. We'll see what they do, but I hope you do that with Knights of the Republic, because I feel like you would just appreciate that they literally do it. Where, hey, if you pick these two powers, that other side that's locked off. You can't get that back. Like, you have that consequence. This is not that. This is that classic skill tree of like, get everything you want, pay for it. And there's things where, okay, you can't have maybe all this valor. Like, you got to pick between, let's say you have a special power, you got to pick which one you're using. But still, everything is just, you have 6 here, you like concentration for your bow, and I got that because I just want to be able to be as slow time as possible. But then there's just like 6 to 8 more updates of it, like, okay, it's 15% faster, it's 5% faster. And this one, usually, I think even with Spider-Man, I think I push back, or like, I enjoyed that one quite a bit. I saw some of your cons, like, no, I think they did a good job with that one. This one to me feels very just copy and paste, and not even for the first, but just the fact that there is just so much this again. It's just,
It is a bit more complex than Zero Dawn, but it's
100%. Yeah, but then when you open them up, to me, because that's skill trees are like a Christmas present for games. You can't wait to see what's there, what you could do. Like, I remember even with Fallout 4, that was one of my favorite things. There were so many cool, like, oh, I didn't even think you could do this. This is all the stuff I thought you could do so far. And there's stuff like the melee that, okay, it's a little bit newer, but there's nothing too exciting. It's like, here's your 2 updates. It's like RR1 3 times, and then right trigger or 3 or 4
I'm like, I'm
times.
never gonna remember these. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I'm not a Mortal Kombat expert either, but so Dylan's right. It is more vast, and I'm excited to see in a couple weeks when we talk about this. But my first like dipping toes in it, I have pretty much done mostly Hunter, and then whatever the soldier one is, and maybe 1 or 2 other there. I don't even feel like I need to, and then I've just focused on Hunter because I want to get as strong as possible just to take down things, because I don't want to die. I want to just be able to destroy people and stuff like that. I feel like I've updated all that, and I don't even need to do the other ones. And that's what's kind of a crappy thing to that. I was kind of referring to earlier with the stew and the weapons, where it's like, if I'm to have so much left, I don't even feel like I need the rest of the skill tree. That's probably an issue, but
I got to a point where I had realized that I had 20 skill points built up. That should like never happen in a game, right? Like that.
Yeah,
just
I had
goes to
15
show,
at one point. And I was like, shit, right? Yeah.
That just goes to show how unexcited I am for what's on there. Like, I'm not itching to get the next thing, and it's good in a way. You don't want to be spending like half the game looking at the skill tree. It can be fun to a degree, but for a game like this, I think you don't want to be spending your time looking around at the skill tree. But that ultimately is like what happens is I just build up a bunch of points, and then I go add some things, but there just isn't too much in there that I'm just chomping at the bit to get. None of them really change fundamentally what you're doing. There is some fun ones, but yeah, I did the same thing where I started with Hunter, and then I went and did quite a few of the healing upgrades. I think it's probably because I'm not using potions and stuff, so I wanted to get my medicinal berries all as super powered as I could. And then I was pretty excited about some of the machine hacking ones you can do. I forget the word, where you overtake them. But so I went and upgraded those a bunch, made them stronger, made them so I can keep them on my team longer and stuff like that. And I like some of the Valor upgrades and the special powers and whatnot you get. Visually, I think it's better than the first game, but once again, I think this is like the enemies. Like, if 1.0 is in the first game, I feel like we're at a 1.5 here. And I should never have 20 skill points built up. That is. And the skill point system is weird. Eventually you start getting 2 every level, I think, and you like quests to give you skill points. You get them from playing, Machine Strike. Like, you just get them all.
Yeah,
all
they're
the time.
just giving them away because there's so many
I still
skills.
feel like I've done like not too much of the skill tree. Like, there's still so much. I will say one thing I like is that they didn't feel the need to, like, I think this was actually something they had in Zero Dawn, where each type of thing, like maybe like the hunter thing, the stealth thing, all had like the same amount of skill points, and some of the or like things you could upgrade, right? So they felt the need to kind of okay, we can stretch all of the ideas we have out here into this skill tree. But I like in this one, like the trapper upgrade stuff is like a really small skill tree compared to like the hunter one's like twice as long, because there's just a lot more things you can upgrade. So I like that they didn't feel the need to try and pad it out with a bunch of extra bullshit, and they just whatever they wanted to add, they did. So it's an improvement. It's just not a huge improvement.
Yeah, it's just like a couple steps there. But again, it just I always wonder too. This game did take 5 years, and it feels sometimes it feels like it was one of these. Okay, we have a new console coming out. Let's get this out a bit quicker because we know this is a popular franchise and it'll probably sell well. But it has been 5 years. I just sometimes feel like, the scope of the world, like where you see the work is the map and the world and the visuals. So it's all there for sure. And I guess wonder if doing all that maybe left the other stuff to the wayside, because with the skill trees and stuff like that, you don't see the work there. And I'm sure people work tremendously hard. I'm not trying to say that. Again, this is still a game I'm really much enjoying. I think we're getting more of the gripes now because we talked about how much of the things we are enjoying, but lots of things are what we enjoy about the first game, right? They're just maybe looking prettier here, or maybe running smoother for me, not smoother for you at times,
Yeah. I mean, there's like in the trapper skill tree, like I'm not really a big trapper guy as my play style, but still, like when I was reading through after I got a bunch of hunter stuff, I saw 2 of them in there, the one at the very bottom and one kind of near the top, give you more like just maximum traps you can put down. I'm like, oh, that's actually really useful, but that's not really that exciting. Or like I would rather just like hit level 15 and arbitrarily like I can use more traps now or something. Like just incorporate more as that like as your natural growth rather than me having to like use skill points on it. But anyway, enough griping on that. I think we should talk about the machines. We kind of these are kind of, I feel like, the selling point for the Horizon game, and we haven't really talked about these guys a whole lot, but they have a lot of machine. I think there's like, I don't know, in the data log thing, it looks like there's maybe like 30 to 35 machines. They've brought back I'd say it seems like most of them I've encountered, although obviously the priority is on these newer machines as like the majority filling up the map there. I feel like there isn't really tons of new mechanics in terms of how the game plays and the fights, but I love some of the new machines. They're really fun. I think the animations are just even better, like the personality some of these machines have. And yeah, I think they've done a great job. Is there a machine, or we can talk, I have a few on my list, but what machine stands out to you as like a cool new addition?
I will say there's just so many just big ones. Like they really emphasize making like humongous ones, so I like that. There's one at one point, I don't think there was one in the first game. It's like a snake-like creature. It's in a main quest one.
Slither Fang is what it's called.
Yeah, good job, because I'm not gonna remember any of these.
I wrote down a few of the ones that I wanted to shout out, because like otherwise I would not remember the name.
Yeah, so that one was really cool, and that was one that I felt which was a good kick in the pants, because for a while I didn't feel like there's not danger, but I feel like, okay, I got a good grasp. I can take this machine. If I get a good read on this machine, I know how to take this thing down. Once I got the boomstick too, but this was one where it was so quick and so fast, and it had multiple attacks. That was really cool. Yeah, there was one, it wasn't the thunder jaw, but there was another one that was just, it was just massive. It might have been in a main quest one, but that was good. And then they'd show this a lot in the games, and I swear I haven't been able to lock it, but I imagine it has to be true. I don't know what they're called, but they're like the pterodactyls and stuff like that. That's
I haven't
cool.
seen those yet. Yeah, still haven't seen the pterodactyls.
You have really? I bumped into them in the deserts. Really?
Oh well, I found other bird ones, but I don't think I've seen the pterodactyl ones.
Like the pterodactyl one should just be like.
I think the pterodactyls to me have like a big pelican kind of head. Like, they have.
Would a long beak count? Would you be thinking like that?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I bumped it. So one time I just found one just chilling on a rock, and then I thought I could silent strike it. It didn't go good, but it didn't kill me because I did. It was the electricity, and like we talked about that gun earlier.
Right.
But at one point in the game, it kind of shows you there's a log of things you can, I think they're called overrides, and then you can start riding them.
Yeah.
Have you seen other people or in other gameplay if you can override the flying ones? Because
I've been wondering about that, man. I was thinking about that, and it's tricky because I went to a couple cauldrons now. One of them was like way beyond my level. Another one's like way off in the distance in the map. So I haven't unlocked too many overrides yet, but I'm really curious if you can ride on one of these things. I can't imagine my frame rate would like that with the popping and stuff like that. But
because to me, cool. I get it. It would be cool because it is one of these things. It'd be completely different than the land animals, right? Like it would give you a whole new perspective. But my worry is, and I haven't looked it up yet, so this is where I'm being naive, is my worry is because we've talked about this game so far where they've taken this like a few, like you said, like a 0.5. I almost wonder if that would be too much work for them to do that, because that would be a lot. But there's a couple ones.
I wonder if that would like make it a bit too easy to get to certain places too. Like I feel like that's hard to balance actually, and that
It
could be
is,
a reason
but at
why
the
they
same
wouldn't do
time, how do you not do that? If you introduce
Yeah.
something, how do you not like have Aloy be able to you to get on that and fly? Like imagine getting to see the map that way. It'd be so cool. So I will be disappointed if you can't fly on one. I think that'll be a big missed
it.
opportunity.
Even if it's like super late in the game, that would be a great late game
Yeah.
reward of like the final cauldron. Even you unlock something like that, that would be cool. Because I think it would kind of trivialize a lot of exploration part of it, or like certain areas, are supposed to be really tricky to get through, but unless you like add a whole system of aerial combat, but I don't think that would happen. I think it would just be fast traveling around pretty much.
Okay, I had to look it up. You can.
Oh, okay.
I just want to see. So yeah, you can override when people are going to.
Is it the pterodactyl one?
It looks like it. Yeah. So you are just like you're fully. It doesn't.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. Okay. So the reason I wanted to look that up is because I would have felt bad by saying you can't mess it up, and now that's something I'm looking very forward to. Now that sucks because one of the override things is it's like the hunting where it's like you gotta go find these things so you can do it. But the second I can do that, I'm gonna jump on that pterodactyl. I'm flying all over. That's gonna be tons of fun. So you know what? Kudos to the game developers there, because that's something I felt if you would not do that, huge missed opportunity. There's a bird. I want to ride the bird.
Yeah. Let me shout out a few of the ones I like. The bristleback is one that you encounter early. It's kind of like a boar, and it's one of the ones that you can. I don't know if you can ride it like initially. I think you can maybe only ride the chargers initially, but after I did a cauldron, I think I unlocked the bristleback. And
yeah, me too.
This kind of has become my guy, just cruising around the desert with him. He also just like poops out shards. So if you jump off and go to a ruin or something, by the time you come back out, like sometimes there's just like piles of shards around.
Yeah.
So that's great, but I love him. He has like these kind of wild backwards kick attacks that you can do.
Yeah, he goes crazy.
Yeah.
That heavy attack, he bucks like a bull. He literally does.
Yeah, so that's been my main guy so far, is in terms of my mount. The wide maw is like the hippo. I think these guys are great. I'm really big fan of them. They also just like shoot out random parts from them. There's one point when you have to like climb this mountain and kind of collect these parts that he's shooting off, so you can either fight him or just wait for him to do that. There's one called a rollerback. I don't know if you found a rollerback yet, but this is pretty much just Sonic. It just turns into a ball and just rolls around.
No, I don't think so, no.
It's fucking terrifying because it moves super fast compared to the other ones, and it's huge as well, so that one's great. Have you encountered a Tremor Tusk yet? That's the elephants. Obviously they're in the trailer and stuff, but I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't had to fight one. I've just seen it off in the distance. I was like, I'm not going to deal with that right now, but I've not fought one yet. Have you fought one?
I have, and I want to fight them more because I want to see if you can like do those things where you knock the there's the guys up on their back, with their little bases. I want to see if you can like maybe knock those guys off, or if you can knock the top of it off, if you know what I mean.
It's funny. No, I think it was like an enemy camp that you mentioned that triggered the memory, because I thought the same thing, because I got the elephant on fire and then I saw him and he fell down, but I was like, could I have shot him off that thing? So no, I did. I have to fight one. I did.
Nice,
but luckily for me, he was just it was fire was his weakness, and I just lit that poor elephant up. So
amazing.
Yeah, very cool. Again, just the scale of the machines.
Yeah.
It's very daunting. It's very cool.
Yeah. The clamberjaw is kind of like a wildcat, has like a long tail. It's just very scary because I've only encountered it in one scenario where it was like stuck on this platform, so it couldn't really get that close to me and be too scary. But it was just like, just pooing fire all over the place. Like it just had this massive fire pool around it, and it was just like spitting fire at me from across the way, and it was just like jittering and jumping around like crazy. Like I'm scared for when I actually have to fight one of those things, like close range combat, because it was fucking terrifying.
Some of the projectiles these things have are just like almost
the slither fang
insta-kill.
with the poison. The poison spit is brutal. And then I have like an anecdote about this one later, but the Tide Ripper, which I love that name, but this is it's like the Loch Ness Monster. I don't know if you've found one of these guys yet.
Is it pretty big?
It's huge. Yeah, it's massive.
Okay, no, I don't think so. No, because I thought maybe like the equivalent of what the alligators
it's in like specific
were in the first
water
game.
areas, but I've encountered a couple of them, so I don't think they're like a one-time boss, but I think you'll fight one soon. But
okay,
man, they are just once again, they're huge. They are so elegant when they swim around, but then when they're on land, they're just like flopping around, but they're still just super scary. So I have a story about those guys later. But yeah, I think once again they did a great job. Just knocking those parts off is fun. Highlighting them, trying to get certain parts so you can get a weapon upgrade is always fun. And just a great variety. And like seriously, they just added. They have the old ones and they added tons and tons of new ones. I think I'm pretty impressed by just the quantity of new machines they added. I guess I thought there would maybe be like a dozen new ones or something, but I feel like there's like a good like 20 new machines or something like that. So
yeah,
they went pretty hard there.
Which makes sense. That is the core. Yeah. Like, I think that's one of the main selling points of the game. It's like when we saw the first reveal of Horizon Zero Dawn, it was like machine robots, like dinosaur robots, and they know where their bread is, like the bread and the butter is. So it's smart that they do that. And again, for any gripes, they have all that stuff. Other than once you kind of beat them, you can kind of figure it out. They're all designed well. They look well. That is just like that stuff they deliver on full front.
Yeah. Definitely. I have two little anecdote moments I want to share, and then I think we can kind of, if you're ready, to get into more of like these story spoilers, character stuff. But yeah, so one of them is kind of related to that Tide Ripper that I was talking about, where it was this kind of bandit camp on the beach, and I went through, took out all the bandits, then I get some, my allies showed up, we were talking for a bit, and then this Tide Ripper just erupts out of the water to come fight us, and I don't even think there's a reason why he's there, but he just, just a classic boss fight to cap off this mission. And I was using that weapon as well, one where you just load up a bunch of shots and fire it off like a machine gun.
Yeah.
And I was like kind of in a safe spot up on the hill, and I was just reloading, firing, did this a few times, hiding behind this wall, and then the Tide Ripper just runs up. And I remember this was in the trailer when the Tremor Tusk, the elephant, like blasts through that wall, but I forgot that was a thing, so I thought I was safe, nice behind my wall here. But the Tremor Tusk, the Tide Ripper just smashed through the wall. My frame rate tanked for like a few seconds, but then it was just chasing me. It knocked me over. And it was just great, and I just ended up just kiting this thing because I was safe nowhere, because it would just blow through anything in the surrounding that could possibly get in its way. And that's what's great, because this thing is fucking huge, and normally in like a Bethesda game that I'm used to, a big enemy like that, you just hop on this little hill, and they can never get to you. You can just kind of cheese them. But I just felt like there was nothing I could do to cheese the thing. I had to win. And sometimes you can cheese them, don't get me wrong, but in this case, it was just so cinematic. This thing blasting through walls, destroying just concrete buildings and things like that just to get to me, and truly felt like this thing just wanted me dead more than anything else in the world.
Yeah, and that's the thing I will say, like with the bigger animals or the boss type animals, they do always have that cinematic feel in a battle, because and it's not a planned out way where it's like a quick time event. It's just the way they make these things and where they put you in location wise. Like you said, most of the time in the big situations, like you couldn't have cheesed the snake. It's just like you got to do this, and it is very kind of epic. And they always get that scale of you feel like there's some, I can't remember. I don't know if it's a side quest. Actually, I think it is a side quest where, like I mentioned, I had to go save a bunch of people. Their village had been flooded, and I had to fight like a bunch of like the little almost like raptor things, and then there was like 2 alligators, and after that just felt like such a battle. Like I felt like I had been through hell and back. I didn't die, but you feel like I did. And that's when you get energized in the game. You're like, okay, I want to go, like, when's the next thing, and then it may take a little while, but some of those big battles, they deliver.
I think that's I'm going to share my favorite moment of the game, and this isn't a story moment. It's not some side quest I was doing with a character. It's not some designed set piece. It was just this collection of systems that the game has, where it was working super well, where there was just it was a little tiny bandit camp. Like there was like 4 or 5 bandits. One of them was up on top of this main platform. He was like the leader, and I was going around in my red flowers, just sneaking up, trying to get my way up there. And I assassinate one of the guys, back out into my flowers again to try and find a new opening. And then I just hear some like shit exploding, and I'm like, oh no, did I get found out? Because it's like these 4 guys, but then they also have 2 of those raptors that like work for them. So they have their raptors with them. And then so something's popping off. I'm like, what the hell is that? So I back out, run to like a more safe location, and then I look, and then this squad of like the crab one and like 2 of those watchers that have like the ranged attacks had showed up at this like bandit camp, and they just started brawling. So it was like these 5 bandits and their 2 raptors versus this crab and this watcher, and it was no joke like a 15-minute long battle. And I'm just sitting there on the side, I'm watching these things battle. Like one team will get an upper hand, and then like the raptor will get knocked over, and then they'll take over. And I was sitting on the side, and I'm just trying to like get last hit kills to steal some experience. I'm not trying to get myself known, just using my long range bow, trying to get a headshot on the enemy to get the experience. And yeah, just 15 minutes of me watching this. Eventually, it like, a bunch of guys died. It all cleared out, and then I was able to climb up on the roof, take out the leader, and then I could kind of just use that as a vantage point to pick out the rest of the guys. But just like that,
I'm here for the loot.
Yeah, just like this random squad of robots, showing up to this base and fighting these guys, and just them actually making like a really epic battle that was back and forth and not just over in a second, but was truly like a war. It was such an iconic moment, and that's what I love about the game. Those are my favorite moments, and those are what I remember from the first game too. Is just moments where it's not even a story thing, but you're just someplace that you don't know, somewhere not safe. You come across some camp, and then just some unexpected shit happens. Some stuff that wasn't designed by the designers. It was just like they just designed these things individually, but then they all work with each other. And I want to find more of that stuff, and that stuff I'm excited after I'm done more of the main story. Just go back, screw around in the open world, and find some of these moments like this, because I'm going to have that experience that I had with that battle. No one's ever going to have that exact same battle that I just had, and it's going to last in my mind. I think that's what I'm going to remember from this game. I mean, I still have more of the main story and stuff, but to me, I feel like that's what I'm going to remember about this game at the end of the year when I'm doing my Game of the Year deliberations. I'm going to remember that moment, that 15-minute sequence, and think like, man, this game is something special, and not many games can pull something off like this.
Well, and that's where I think we get into talk about the strong suit of it is you get put down in this world and just like anything can happen for the most part, right? And that's what it does feel like. It feels like you and me are always going to have, even in a main story experience, even if from point A to point B, the ending is the same. There's just stuff in between that's always a little bit different, and that's where for like some of the cons we have, I think that's where this game it might feel like more DLC, but it still is like it's more DLC for like great stuff in there. And I was gonna before we go start, I'll share two quick ones too as far as the anecdotes. One, this is a very quick one where because this is right when they start to introduce when you go to a different part of Rebels being in there, and I kind of forgot about that. So there's a camp of guys, and I just jumped because I thought, oh, this is gonna be probably some people to talk to. They were not. It was just a bunch of rebels that completely turned on me quick. And then there's this one camp I did, which I hated it. I had the worst experience. So I went on the very top, and I was just shooting all these guys and everything like that. They killed my animal, so I was very motivated to kill these people, which is, it's strange in the camp. I even said to Emily, I totally went down the dark side. My first time going to the camp, it was like, find the leader. So I was like, oh, maybe I can find them and talk to them. And then right when you find them, it's just like, kill the leader. It's just like, oh, okay. And then you just have to massacre this entire tribe. But whatever. So I was going up top, and it was like a little tower. And I had this perfect plan of like, okay, I'm going to set a trap. They're going to walk up there, and they're going to die. So I've set the trap up, of course. And this happens a lot because I feel like Aloy, sometimes she's a perfect jumper, and sometimes she's just going buck wild like a monkey on cocaine. So I set the trap, I fall off the cliff, and I get hurt, and like I had a perfect plan. So I make my way up, I go all the way back up, and I get to the trap. It explodes. So I did that, but then I step back, I fall again, and when I fall again, I fall where the leader is and all the animals. And they destroy me. And I was there for like a solid 25 minutes, like setting this up, like I'm gonna take up these up top people, and then I'll have the vantage point. I literally couldn't believe that I fell off this cliff and landed like, and when you fell, I had maybe 35 left, and they just rained down on me. Like I literally was in a circle of bad guys. And again, that's where I was frustrated in the moment, because like, oh, I wasted 20 minutes of like setting up this trap, getting them up there. But it was something that stuck with me of like just rolling off this hill and like, damn, all these people are here, and I'm done for. But I did take over that camp. I had to. Nice. And I felt dark. We'll talk about in story, I felt dark about doing it, because I just felt, again, I was just like Anakin Skywalker in the prequels. Like I was just slaughtering these people. And Aloy has a few times in this story where we'll save it, but I did not feel good being Aloy, so. Well,
yeah, I mean, there's even one point in the story where she's like, oh, they fired on me first. I'm like, that is a fucking lie. Like, these people did not shoot at me. I just saw it when my focus highlighted them, and that meant I got to kill them. So.
And I will say, before we get into like the spoiler part of the story, is you might be like, oh, you're not liking that they're kind of making her choices. No, this is not like Last of Us, where it's like, hey, Ellie, the character, is very shades of gray. She's doing stuff that is bad, but the content is about that. Like, why are you doing this? Aloy is always the good guy. She's done nothing wrong. She's the champion. There's multiple times where she's doing things where I'm like, this feels a little inconsistent with who they want her to be. And stuff, just little stuff like that. Oh, they shot first. Like, it feels like she's making excuses so she can slaughter people at will. But anytime she's like, I'm not a killer, like, there's some good stuff to talk about.
Yeah. Let's get into that then. Let's jump to one more ad break, and then we'll get in here. We'll talk about some more story, character, spoilers up to where we are at in the game. So let's take a quick break. And we are back. Should be the last segment here. We're going to be talking about the story up to... so I'm ahead of Travis. So Travis is at the point where... We'll say this. If you kind of get this mission to go take out these... or go find these 3 subordinates, and you can do them in any order that you want. And Travis did the... I think it was a level 17 mission.
Yeah, it's 17, 22, and then 24.
Yeah.
So I think I'm right because like was the last thing you did the 22 one, I imagine, in the game.
I've done all of that stuff now, and
You did all 3 of those now.
And I've even done a couple missions past that. So
wow, you are.
I think I am I think I am quite a bit further. But we'll open up the spoilers to that level 17 mission.
Sure.
Which I don't know the name of it, but anyway, if you've played the game, you know where we're talking about.
Well, so and I got a little pass there too when you fight like in when hour and spoilers, like fight the Spectre and your first meeting with Beta and stuff like that. So that's kind of I'm on my way to the 22 one. That's where I am. Good. So Sounds good.
So yeah, let's I guess just going back to the start. The start of this game is pretty much that. Well, the effects of the first game was that you just did half the job, and now you got to go do the second half, which feels a little hand wavy. I think, they kind of alluded to it with I remember the post-credit scene in Zero Dawn is like Silence has the, I guess Hephaestus is what he had. And so essentially your job isn't done yet. And so you start out, you're still in the location of Zero Dawn, and then you're eventually going out to the Forbidden West, and that's where you're going to hunt down and find Silence and then go from there. So the game, I guess, takes place 6 months later from the events of the first game. So I don't know. I guess just in a quick way, like, what did you think of that initial? Like, was that a good hook for you? I think for me, it felt a bit like, oh well, it was all for nothing in the first game, and so that kind of sucks. But I think I got over that pretty quick, to be honest. And then I was kind of like, okay, I'm down for the new journey. But maybe they could have done a little bit more inventiveness in terms of extending what they had created in the first game.
Yeah, no, I feel pretty much the exact same you were. I was pretty disappointed, and not to like rain down on these guys, but if you look at the games they've made before, Killzone, nothing incredible story-wise, right? And I was kind of hoping that was my thing of like, I thought the story was like a good, solid action movie in the first one, but I was kind of hoping with a sequel, okay, now that you have mechanics and stuff like that, maybe you could do more. Where this just feels like a sci-fi action movie that, the Terminators are back, the aliens are back. It's like, okay, that's fine. And yeah, even though we got that end credit scene, I still thought there'd be something new to it or a new twist. But literally it was like you had this big battle at the end game, the first one, and that thing went away, but it didn't go away because Cylon's like captured it, and he's been studying, he's doing what you can't do. And that's where I got over it, but I was not deflated, but I went, oh, that's the best we got. It's just you didn't kill it, and because that to me is just like, so if we ever get a third game, is that still gonna be the same thing? Like, oh, you didn't fully kill it. Like, I feel like this world, they introduced so many creative things that you could have found something else. There's something that we'll talk about in the middle that they introduced. That's why I think I like that more than you, because it's like, okay, new antagonist, new storyline, new idea, even maybe potentially us going to different planets maybe in the future. That's more what I was looking for. So that is helping the more mid-story. I think the thing, it's tough in video games. It's almost like what you're talking about, the open world, as far as like when you start off zero, and we kind of talked about this with side quests of, hey, you have something that's very urgent, but you have all these people, oh, okay, you do this for me, do this. I found a lot of the story so far is you go to a place and I really need you to collect this for me. I really need you to collect this for me. And I get it because it is that, but I don't think they're writing it in the most natural way. And to jump to that part where, like I said, I can't remember the name of the place, but that's where I really liked the chief that in the level 17 when I loved all that. I love the look. I love the guy that he's with you now. His name's like Tell Talk or whatever his name is.
Talaro, I think.
Yeah,
Maybe?
something like that. But he has one arm. But he has this great little minor story of like he just doesn't know if he can do it anymore. He doesn't think he has much life left, but he wants like so. There's some good side character stuff. But what I hated was they have this interaction, Aloy and the Chief, and he's just like, I want you to force these people to come join me to battle. And Aloy's like, this is like her urgency. She has to get this done. And she just goes, why don't I just kill you right now and take you? He's like, you could, and you might be successful, but I need you to do this. And in that moment, I was just like, why does Aloy actually not just shoot him? Like, why? Like, at this point, it's just like, you are withholding something that it doesn't matter if this tribe doesn't join you. If you don't give this thing to me, you're just dead anyways. So you should give. And I feel like Aloy, the character, just always like, I guess I'll do it. I guess I'll do it.
Well,
And
there's a point later on where someone's like, you got to do this thing or we're going to get you. And then literally 2 archers like point their bow at you. I'm like, am I supposed to be scared of that? Like, is that supposed to scare the character of Aloy, who is earlier in this game, like fought off like that tribe in that like opening area, which was like a savage battle that I lost like several times, like, really hard. And it's like, okay, 2 archers are going to make me scared enough to go along and like do this evil guy's bidding. Like, there's some weird stuff, and yeah, you've alluded to the inconsistency of the character, but I definitely feel you. And let's double down on that Talano mission where you go to this city and you like essentially threaten to blow up the city to get them to join your side. Which, first of all, that doesn't make sense. Like, oh, I'm gonna kill you so you can join me. But also, that town up there has kids running around. Yeah. There's innocent people just chilling up there, and Aloy, like, she doesn't know what's gonna happen when she blows up the thing. It could have blown up the whole city and killed all of these people. That makes no sense. That really, really rubbed me the wrong way.
I'm so glad you talked about that, because so what I was doing with Emily as a joke when those guys killed my animals, I said I dropped the Anakin line, like, I'm gonna kill them, not just the men. And I was just like memeing, I was having fun. And she's like, oh, you're being such a terrible person. And then once we got this and she was sitting there with me, I'm like, I don't want to do this at all. And what Dylan says, like, literally the big chief says, like, hey, I need all the tribes there. So you go there and they say, yeah, we are not going to join you. They're doing the King Theoden thing, right? Of, we're in Helm's Deep. We feel we can held up here. You go off on your own. So what does Aloy do? She goes and investigates their whole wall and finds a weak point, and then goes to find a cannon and blows that weak point and completely demolishes it. And not as a threat, as far as I thought that's what she might do, like scare them into it and then not actually do it. But no, and she doesn't even give them like a last warning. You just blow up half of their wall, and I know they give this thing of like, oh, well, you have no wall now, so you better come. But it's just like, what happens in the next half an hour if they're attacked and they're all killed? And that's where I really, really disliked.
Who's
it.
the
like,
bad guy here? You know,
it felt like she was just being a bully, and like she was literally sacrificing these people's lives. And like, okay, sure, maybe there's this chief, and I get it, right? Because the idea is this chief promised him and his tribe would be there, but he's going back on it. Fine, but like you said, there's other people there that weren't a part of this decision. There's kids there, and it really rubbed me the wrong way. And that's where I started to worry for the story going forward. Is like, once I start to not like the main character, and it's not in a way where I said like Last of Us, where it's like they took Ellie, and it's like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. You're going down a bad path, and that's the whole crux. They address that. This is not that. It's just Aloy like, well, we really showed them. It's like, yeah, you showed them by like setting them up to die. And there's just multiple before that was like multiple little lines, like she would say stuff like that. And I was really frustrated because I liked the first half when everyone's calling her champion and they all recognize her. And it's something that, she doesn't like. And she's like, every time she's like, call me Aloy, please call me Aloy. So I really liked this push and pull of the chosen one thing, but she doesn't want anything to do with it. She wants to save this like world and get back to her life. But yeah, and I'm worried like what's gonna happen next, and I worry about other side quests. And it's like, kind of, for a character I really liked the first game, that side quest to me made no sense. That felt very bro 80s actiony. Like, why are you doing this to this tribe?
It wasn't even it's not like that was a riveting mission to go get this cannon and come back. Like, I would have much preferred 5-10 minutes of like, maybe you go around this town and you talk to these people, you talk to some of the locals, you talk to some of the like leaders, subordinate people, and you can like find out what he would want and like just just talk to him, like just a dialogue sequence instead of
Yes.
you had to go and do this whole thing where you have to hunt down this robot and get this certain cannon. So yeah, it's like not even you're getting interesting gameplay out of it. I would have totally been down to condense that to a 5-minute sequence. I guess the only positive is that Talaro, I wish I knew his name, but something like that.
Mhm.
I do like that character, and I think he sticks around and he's a cool character. And later he gets a side quest that I haven't done yet, but I'm really excited to do it. It's just like a higher level one, so I'm excited to do his side quest. But like, and so yeah, it's like I get a good intro to the character. I mean, he's pretty dry in that opening sequence, but over time he becomes interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that was not worth it to have this really character breaking moment. But also to what you're talking about, with people always saying like, "Oh, it's the savior of Meridian." Like I really liked that first too, because in most of the games like this, like I play like Elder Scrolls or something, like each game you're a new character
Yeah.
and some new worlds. It's like you don't have some legacy to you, and I like that people recognize your character. They know who she is and they respect her for that. But I also feel like they use that line one too many times, 10 too many times. The savior of Meridian, she's back. Or like everyone's like, the girl with hair of fire.
Yeah,
Or,
hair of fire,
blood hair. Like everyone's always talking about her hair. It's like a bit too
Yeah.
much. I think they could have toned that down a bit. But I like what you said too of like she doesn't care, she obviously she just wants people to call her Aloy, and even too like things come up later where it's like, hey, we're gonna do this thing. She's like, you can have all the glory. I don't care about that. I just need to get this shit done. But you can tell everyone that you were the savior of this. Like I don't give a shit about that part of it. So I do like some parts of Aloy, and I mean the voice acting is great, honestly,
Yes.
and I think they got even better with the mocap and stuff like that. But yeah, man, there's some major inconsistencies with this character.
Well, and like you talking about from a player's perspective, that mission of like having to go there, get the cannon, coming back, stuff like that, how a waste of time. If you look at, to me, how that mission was pitched as when she says, "Oh, I could just kill her right here." The reason Aloy doesn't do that because she's supposed to be a good person, right? She's supposed to be looking out for the best. But then, so you're telling me the reason she didn't kill the chief because she's a good person. But then she goes over to this tribe and takes out half their wall.
Yeah.
Again, if she's like that, she should have just killed the chief and took his thing and went. Like, if you look at it from a character point of view, if you're going to commit like a really bad crime, look at how long it took to go get that cannon, that tribe. She was part of the battle where she could have shot this guy and been on her way. Like, to me, I would have felt that more of a character beat of she didn't want to do that. And that's what I hated too. Even if she did that wall thing, if the whole time she was like, I really don't want to do this, but this is the only thing, she had no care. She just did it. And I hope there's not, any more of that in the game unless it's a story point. But again, it's done. And it's part of the main story too, so it's not even a side quest where it's like you can kind of headcanon away of like, oh, it's just it's part of the main that you have to play. And it's a weird beat, but yeah, I the champion stuff didn't bother me. I liked when they had a statue and she was like the guy was like, oh, I wanted to make it bigger, but I know he wouldn't like that. And we talked about this, the first game had this, and this game again has it very lightly, but it has like sometimes some dialogue options, right?
Yeah, very few. I think I've had 3.
On the same.
Choices, yeah.
But what I would wish is when you go to a camp and it says find the leader, I wish if you had like 4 dialogues and you just have to like maybe get them in the correct order, so you could maybe talk them down. The camp's like, you know what, you are right. Maybe we'll stop this, a truce. But the fact that even then you're still just, I don't know, like for me with Ghost of Tsushima and Shadow of War, when they have like these camp like things, that to me fits more than Aloy. To me is not like an executioner character, and it feels when you go to that camp, it feels like you are that. It feels like you found this camp, and even though they're bad guys, you are there to just murder all these people. It doesn't matter, and it's just kind of strange. And maybe if they were in the first game, then I kind of forgot about them. And again, I've
I don't think there was as many. I'm guessing like because they've revamped the melee combat is something they wanted to do, but like I'm still stealthy in these things. Like I'm not really engaging with the melee.
I try to unless I roll up a hill. So yeah, I hope in the future we get no more story beats like that. But it's kind of the monkey's out of the bottle,
Yeah, I will say I think generally for me the story has gotten a lot better. Like immediately where you're at, like these next 2 places that you go to, like those are my 2 favorite missions in the game, I think, to this point, and then the stuff after that is good as well. So that's a positive. I mean, there is still some weird things here or there, but generally I think it's good. I also this is a thing in the first game as well where Aloy just talks all the time, but I'm actually getting kind of annoyed by it in this game. Like there's one cauldron that I think is a main story thing where you're going through that cauldron and you have to like Yeah, because I think you do it with Varl and Zoe, if I'm remembering correctly. But there's like points where you have to jump and use your glider to go down to a lower part in this cauldron. And every time you get near one of these things, they always like, I wonder if I can use my glider here. And once again, that's like reinforcing that linearity of these levels that are really uninteresting. But like, it makes it even less interesting when like these, even if it was fun to figure out a solution, like Aloy just talks about it all the time, and it's weird too. It also just doesn't make sense. Like no one talks to themselves that much about just like random stuff. And I get it.
This bus is gonna be here on time.
Like I get it. It's a video game. It's supposed to be like maybe like internal monologue, or she's just thinking through things. But I think they overdo it, and I would have happily cranked that back 50% of the time just for random things like, oh, I better send this to my stash. Like, I don't need you to say that out loud. Why are you saying that?
Every time, too.
Why are you saying that? Like, yeah, the 1,000th blueberry I picked up. Why is that coming up again? Like, we can skip some of that stuff. Let me go back to this. So after we've kind of skipped we've skipped a major chunk of the story, but one thing too is like when you go from the area, I don't know what is the like. This is the west, but are we just calling it the east? I guess so. Yeah, when you go from the east to the west is like this. That's like the title sequence of the game, and it's just a travel sequence of Aloy traveling, and you're seeing these different vistas and like director and like all these names are popping up. I really like that sequence. I love a good travel sequence in a thing. But it's also the music is beautiful here. Getting to see some vistas, and I think it's after a couple hours of gameplay, it's a nice just relaxation after whatever that sequence was there. So I really liked that kind of setting you up for the West, because I assumed you would just start in the West immediately in this game, but I like, even if I was a bit bored by some of the early stuff in the game, I like that there is at least a story sequence where it's taking you from where you were before in Meridian and setting you up to go west. So shout outs to that.
And you didn't, or I didn't shout out more, is I really like the first time you are going to the Forbidden West, and there's the whole clans talking about if you're allowed or not. That set piece of, like I said, it's not the greatest the melee battles, but I love this was like the very first time to me. We've had it a little bit in the first game, but of like you dealing with a lot of human enemies, and I love just the landscape. Like you're in the field and these people are surrounding you, there's arrows coming everywhere, you fight that chief at the end or whatever, that like war, like the challenger or stuff, and I that felt very cinematic, and I can't wait to kill that woman chief leader who keeps that's another thing that was annoying too. And that first 17 when you finally go there and they do the invading, and that's why so much earlier when you just get the power weapon, there's this final fight scene where there's a wall about to fall, Aloy stops it, and then that woman is just up on the cliff, and she's like mouthing you off, like, when I'm back here. I mean, like, why is no one just shooting any arrow at this woman?
There's a few moments of that in this game where Aloy, normally is so apt to jump on an opportunity, but sometimes she'll just sit and watch a villain run away.
But the introduction to the rebels, and it was specifically her and that whole set piece mission, really good. Just like the weather going on stuff, and
So jumping now, bridging the gap between those two things we've talked about in the story. So the first kind of major objective after you get through the first game had like I forget what the name of it, but it's like the Nora area. So it's like the safe zone almost before you're allowed to go in the whole rest of the open world. This game has that as well with Chain Scrape and that kind of area. And then you're setting up this embassy, and then you kicks into the full open world, and that's where it gets going. And so your first objective out there is to go track down Silence, because you have his location, and so you go to this place. This was one of those things too where I was not digging the game as much, because I felt like this was really weird. Like Aloy's very quick to trust Silence again, which made no sense for me. It really kind of bothered me. And then I also I really did not like the level design of that. I'm not going to harp on this. We've talked about that. I didn't really like that whole section. And then you get introduced to those villains, the kind of Guardians of the Galaxy kind of villain guys. We'll talk about them in a bit. But the thing that annoyed me the most is you do this whole escape sequence, you make it out, but like barely. You're like knocked down unconscious. You show up 2 days later on the beach, and then Varl finds you, and that really bothered me.
Anywhere.
That really bothered me. How the fuck? I never even told this guy I was going here. And let alone he finds me down in this river, like, a few clicks down the road. And like, how did I not die just drowning in the water? I don't know. That really was a coincidence of many in this game that really bothered me. And then, thankfully, of course, he had met up with his local named Zoe, and Zoe conveniently has access codes to the next place I need to go. It just felt a little bit contrived. I think they could have done some work to I don't know, maybe like Varl, you had an escape plan that he would help you find, but you had told him to fuck off pretty much, and
Yeah.
he just happens to find you. Really, really not good writing there on that section.
I guess the
of it.
only thing I took it as maybe somehow with the focus he could track her down because he had the focus at that point. So maybe, but they don't explain that to you. That's me headcanning it of going maybe there's a way. But oh yeah, Varl he just shows up multiple times, just like hey, like
he's persistent. I'll give him that.
he is. And I thought they were really giving me him like a romance angle, but no, that was dropped very quickly. So
yeah, they set up with another character, and I mean just in general like. They make it like that in opening sequence. Obviously, you're not doing it, but like the credits where you're going out west, it seems like, man, this is quite the trek. But then, like, so many characters from the east they're just here.
Yeah,
like Aaron, he's just here. Why is he there? No real reason. He's just hanging out west.
Yeah.
And then Varl, obviously, he finds his way there. He has a reason to though. But there are some other characters as well that just kind of pop up, and it's fun to have a character from the first game, of course, but. I have to also admit, like, I do not remember Varl from the first game.
Me either.
I remember Aaron, of course. He's a big part of it. So I guess Varl's from, like, the Nora part of the game. But I did not remember him. But I do like him. I like the character. The stuff with Zoe, I felt like it was maybe a bit forced, but it's fine. I like their dynamic. It's all right.
I was happy because I didn't want him and Aloy doing the romance thing. So that's why I was happy that they did that. Like, okay, I like at one point when you're going their quarters and Guy is like, they requested their private room, and Aloy, who apparently just doesn't know, he's like, oh, I see. Just like hasn't put, and maybe we don't know. Maybe she hasn't really been with many people, but it was just funny. It was just like
doesn't have time for that kind of thing.
Yeah, she doesn't. So that's why I was happy Zarl was off doing something else. Yeah. So.
I haven't listened back to our Zero Dawn review, but from what I remember, you were not a big Aaron fan.
No, I still am not.
Yeah, nothing's changed there for you?
No, I think I like that he's in the game less, but it just like it.
It makes sense that he's just sitting in the base playing, Machine Strike all day. Like
100%. Yeah, I did want to play him. I was pretty disappointed when I walked up to him. It's like, oh no, he's just listening to his music. So I think
you can play him. Maybe you have to. Maybe it happens later. But
good.
There is an icon for it in my game.
I'm excited to beat him later. I can't wait. I'll embarrass him. But
he's always just like, anyone want to play some Machine Strike? It's like, but buddy, we're busy saving the world. Like,
yeah. Okay.
He's like, I had too much to drink last time.
And I love too. Like anytime they're on a mission, he's always like the lookout. It's almost like they know he's expendable. Like, Aaron, just stay out here. Me and Zara are gonna go in, and
there's even like there's like a plot later on, and one of Aloy's line is like, unless Aaron fucks it up, like she just has no faith in this guy.
Yeah. So no, he's all right. I don't find him as annoying, but again, he's not in it as much. So
let's talk about the guy quickly who shares a name with you. So Travis Tate is kind of set up as like an early villain in this game. To me, he's just like, I guess like a Ted Faro 2.0, but then he just like fucks off and he's just not in the story. Like still like where I'm at, he has not come up again. So I don't know if he was just like an early hook or something, but I feel like they really fumbled that one. I just don't know what the point of adding him is. Adding him in is if he doesn't lead into anything else. So it sounds like you feel the same.
I didn't like him. I didn't because I felt like they were trying to make him almost like, I don't know, Apple mogul hipster type of guy, and I didn't like that because it just, I get it, it's in the past, everything, but I was like, okay, I wasn't jiving the character, but I do think he will come back. I don't think you just set that up as just a rant. I think there'll be some sort of other whatever hologram or flashback or something like that. So I think he will come back. But again, if he's not in it that much, that's fine because I wasn't digging him yet. So
yeah, I won't go into these, but the next two missions that you have to do to go get Poseidon and Demeter, great missions. I won't tell you why, but I really like those.
The second they said the Vegas, I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun. Yeah. So
I know I went to go to that one first, and then I was like, I should probably go to like the lower level one. I'm not even level 20 yet. So that was kind of my path there. And then, okay, here's another coincidence that I got to bring up is, you spawned Gaia. She has like a human form now, or a hologram form. And she's telling you this plot, and she's helping you along. And she's talking about how like there's the 8 subordinate functions, or however many there is. And, after this whole thing, like they all got launched all over the world, and you see like this map. They're showing the world map and showing these different areas and stuff like that. But then, conveniently, the 3 you need are, within like a 5-minute walk.
Yeah.
Of
Oh,
course, you got to do it. Just, I feel like the writing could have been a bit better there of like a reason why they're all in specifically the West. But yeah, it's like, why is like one of them not over there in Japan or something? Like, what's going on here? It doesn't make any sense. So, once again, like, you could add one more line of dialogue to make that make sense, and I wouldn't have had complaint about it. But instead, they went with like the easiest possible solution, which is just pure coincidence. So I didn't like that.
Yeah, I agree. It's just very like, oh, here they are. Good luck. And you look in the map, like, okay, they're farther into the maps, but they're not that far as like an actual world base, So
here's a quick thing. There's a lot of skippable cutscenes in this game, but there's also even more unskippable cutscenes, and there's kind of an inconsistency. Like some main story stuff, you can kind of, it's not like you're skipping it, but you can like skip to the next line of dialogue, and then, if it's like an animated scene where everyone's in a specific spot, like it'll zip to the next spot, that even the music cuts ahead, and it's good. Like I like that I can zip through a conversation, but more often than not, you are not allowed to, and I don't really understand why. Sometimes it's a side quest you can't skip, sometimes it's main quest stuff you can skip, so there's really no consistency to it. I think next time make it so you can skip all of them. Just it's not like I'm skipping the content. I can read quicker than the characters are going to say this line. And some cutscenes I'll let them go through, but other times I really want to just kind of get through this conversation. So
yeah, especially when it's stuff that is just not that vital. So I agree with you. There's times where I hit it and I'm like, okay, I guess I really need. They don't want me to miss this, And
yeah, it's weird. We got to you can build a base in this game, kind of. You kind of get your headquarters. This is where Gaia is. You get your allies here. More allies join you as time goes on. You can go and talk to your allies. You can play Machine Strike. There's different rooms that open up as you do more of the stuff. Things like the rooms get more decorated over time. Like your allies will fill it with more decorations and more candles. They'll decorate their rooms. That's great. As far as I'm concerned, every game like this, like Outer Worlds did this really well with your ship. And I love it. I hope every open world game has a fun base like this that's building up over time with your allies and whatnot. It's just great. Love it. No, not a single complaint with it. It is fantastic.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm excited to see where it is at the end of the game and even what they would do. Like if you were to get a third game, would this be your like official base of operations now, or would you just? Who knows? By the end of this game, this thing could be blown up, right? So who knows? But yeah, I like it too. I like having a base literally as far as
it's just called the base, which is funny too.
Yeah,
there's so many there's so many names in this, such a wordy game, but like they just call it the base.
Plus, if right now, like I said, I worry what could happen to, but as right now they've set up was why it's off the grid, so it makes sense that a lot of their characters or Aloy would like have downtime here if they need anything, right? So
and I like too, like there's various characters in the game that when Aloy like recruits them, she's like, okay, go to this place just west of Plainsong. My teammate's going to meet you. It's a bit like you're putting a lot of faith in this person to make it across this dangerous map. But I still like that they at least reference that and not just say, welcome to the team, and then this person magically ends up there. I like that they do that. Even for like that Talana mission, like she doesn't go to the base camp and hang out there as far, or at least what I've done yet, but it's still like you give her commands to go there, she'll meet your friend, and then your friends like set her up with something. So I like that. I think that's a good use of that. Also, too, I don't know if you've done this, but have you done any of the drones yet?
Like, yeah, I did one drone,
And have you used it, like, in the base?
No.
So in the Gaia room, there's in the back is, like, the console where you can, if you've done a drone,
that's
you can go over there.
That's what the icon is for, okay.
And then it changes the background. So it's kind of like the X-Men, like, whatever room that Professor... So, yeah, you can, like, decorate it. So I got, like, the desert one when I went to Vegas. And yeah, Cerebro, that's the word. And then it just like has a nice fun desert background in that room.
Okay.
So
I'll do that.
And it's like an IMAX kind of thing, right? Like it's not just like a blank JPEG. Like it feels really cool. It kind of sets you in that environment. So, and I've only unlocked one, but now it's like that's a collectible I want to do because even though I'm not in that room a whole lot, that's a really cool addition. So
it's nice for Gaia too, Get her to see some of the outside.
I know. It must get so boring.
You're just waiting for Aloy to give you info.
Yeah. I think it's time to talk about some of these villains, these Guardians of the Galaxy kind of decorated. Like they just remind me of the Nova Corps. Like I've also just watched the Guardians movies recently, but like they kind of have that sort of aesthetic. So these are the Far Zenith people that have, Travis Tate said that the spaceship was destroyed, but in reality it wasn't, and now they're coming back to Earth to fuck you up, I guess. What do you think of these guys? My initial impression was pretty. I'm gonna say negative. Didn't love the dialogue or the characterization, but I think you were on the opposite side. So, what do you think about these characters?
Yeah, like I like, because already we were getting humans as a threat, but right away, especially you get a fight scene with Eric, and it feels different, which is good. So that's was kind of what I was wanting for a sequel, as far as, okay, this is stepping up, this is something new. So between them, and I've only had the one fight scene, and then the specters, which I think are just very cool and well designed. I like the idea. They give me this like Illuminati, and you won't like this comparison too, a like David from Prometheus or Covenant sort of feel.
I
Like
feel that. Yeah.
they're like the fact that they like faked their space crash landing to just go to try a different planet, didn't work, and they're coming back to reboot it. I like that concept of, I think I agree with you, the actual characters so far, I haven't got enough of them, so I'm waiting to see more. But even but even Eric, he felt very generic video game, just like, I like to hurt people. It's just like, who really likes to hurt people that he could function with? Most of those people are serial killers locked up. He was functioning with 5 other people, and there wasn't many people, so it's a weird thing. But the idea of them, the concept, feels almost too like very Planet of the Apes, of like they went to this planet, came back, and they have this idea of what they're going to do with it. So I do like the power set. I like some of the machines around them, and I like the idea. I think for me, of if I'm going to be fully aboard, is this the execution, how we get on the end. And as we've talked about the story, there's been some kind of wishy-washy stuff. So I can't tell you by the end of it I'll still feel this way, but I like the potential. And I like I said, I don't know what's going to happen, but I do like the setup of, hey, this space travel exists, and you never know where that may take us, right? There may be a time where we might have to leave Earth, whether it's in this game or in the future. I think that's smart to set it up. And I think of classic sci-fi motives, right? It's Thanos. They want to rebuild the world in their vision. Cool,
Yeah, I think my initial impression was not good, but as I learned like what their plot is and why they're here, I do like them more because it's interesting. I'm not spoiling anything, but maybe this is like semi spoilers, but just setting your expectations that I'm like 3 or 4 missions further than you. They haven't popped up again, so I'm getting a bit worried that they're just not going to be in it a whole lot. And,
well, didn't they pop up? There's a girl that pops up that you find in the snow, right? There's that
right.
one.
Okay, I didn't know if you had done that yet.
Yeah, I got that part.
She just kind of dies randomly.
It was
she
very
doesn't
random.
Say a single word.
No.
And since then, I've not seen them.
Okay.
They I don't know where the fuck they are. They're talked about here or there, but you don't get another scene with them, or at least I haven't yet. You will, obviously, or I hope so. But I just don't know. Like, I don't know if you would. I don't think this is really the kind of game where you would skip to the villain's perspective and see them in their lair plotting or anything like that. Like some games would do, but I just don't know if they're really going to stick the landing if they don't really give these characters time to burn or time to earn it. And if we're dealing with 10 hours pass or 15 hours, 20 hours pass between the time you're introduced to them and the time you see them again, it's hard to really feel invested in these characters and think that they're going to be dynamic. So I would say at this point I'm worried. I didn't have that great initial impression. I like the idea maybe, but I'm just don't know if the execution is going to be there. And I think that kind of goes in line with the Travis Tate thing, or even that girl, that tribe leader. I don't know, they're introducing these villains and then they're just not around, and you're kind of getting these one-off villains for each mission, or just a machine who doesn't really have the personality. So I don't know. Maybe it'll all tie together in the end, but 25 hours in, I'm just not feeling like I think so far my favorite villain is that I think her name is Regalo or something like that. But she's like the girl that ambushes you and at the embassy.
Yeah, voiced by Angela Bassett.
Yeah, I think she's just slightly. She actually has some character to her, and I want to get to know her more. Whereas the other characters, well, I guess you also see that girl at the mission you just did at that place that we can't remember with the giant arena. So you see her some more, but I think I need some more screen time before I can really feel much for these characters, and I guess I just don't know how much further I have to go in the story and if I'm going to get that.
Well, I'm 50-50 because I feel like there's always a chance those Zenith people, they could be sequel bait, and they may save them kind of like they did with Xylons, right? And they're like, okay, they're around. But if not, I'm expecting to be disappointed because so far the story has, no, I wouldn't say terrible, but kind of every time I thought it would be really, really good, they've kind of maybe dropped the ball or fumbled and be like, oh no, 5-second rule. But what I do like from a combat perspective is between the Chief, between the Zenith people, and then the Spectres, I think you're going to get like multiple maybe final boss battles, and they are going to be very different, and I think that's a good thing, where the last game was you're in a big town, you're fighting this big machine. I think you can't just redo that. So that's why I guess I like them from a gameplay standpoint, where okay, these guys could provide some really cool boss battles. You didn't get that the first one with Eric, because that was just shoot this, thing down and crush them. But now that you have this ball, that's like, hey, you might be able to take them down. Hopefully it leads to some interesting dynamic gameplay stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, truthfully, that's all I have to really say about those characters. Like, I just I don't have enough ammunition. I don't have enough arrows in my quiver yet. Any other story stuff that you wanted to mention?
Just Beta. We hadn't talked about her yet.
Right,
too.
right.
Yeah.
For some reason, crossed her off my list, but we didn't talk about her yet.
So I thought very cool reveal if you're in this base where you're starting to set up Guy and everything like that, and they're the doors are being banged. Like, this felt very, if they make a movie, this is going to be a great scene one day. Like, they're banging on doors, there's projectiles, and Guy or someone in their ears like, well, it's not going to matter because they can only get through DNA coded, so it's not going to happen. And then those doors open, and it's like the name, like, oh, Sorbert acquired and stuff. And then like, oh my goodness. And then plus I didn't know, like, is this going to be a clone? Is this going to be actual relative? Is this going to be her? And they revealed it's just a clone, but still, I thought that was very, from a cinematic point of view, really well done. It's like it went from 0 to 100 real quick to like, oh, they can't get through the door, to, oh no, these are super powerful beings going through, and it's your clone of yourself. You could argue like a sister in a point of view. And so far, I've only had the one scene where you first talked to her as Aloy, and that interests me because I forgot that you were clones. So I like the idea this is another clone. What I've liked so far is that they are a little butting heads, but I think where it's going to work out is Aloy is clearly like the physical superior, but then Beta's going to be like, she's running all these like diagnostics in her brain. Like, she's trying to figure out how they could happen. I love that when she asks Aloy how far along, she's like, man, you're supposed to be so much further than this, which is kind of like, it feels like a fun shot to use, almost like a video game player of like, you're supposed to be so much further along. But I like that, Aloy's going to be the bronze and Beta's going to be the brains. And I think they're going to have a couple good scenes. So that interests me, that dynamic. And I like, even then Beta was like, I shouldn't have come here. Like, she's already considering that maybe she should leave because she doesn't know. She was, what a life. On their way back to Earth, they like just born her in some pod, right? So I feel there could be some really good layers to that character. So I like the foundation they've set so far. Again, it's just the execution, what's going to happen in the future. And I hope it's just not, she just gets killed off and that motivates her. So I hope not. I hope they build her up a little bit, but I like the idea of another clone because it's I like clones, so
no, I like the hook too, and I think it's a good execution of, I have to imagine it's the same voice actress, but it honestly could be a different one. Like, they really, just the way she talks, she's meek in the way she talks. She's not very confident. Like, she'll get like heated very easily. She's quite neurotic. She clearly has a ton of trauma. And like, she is like she's nothing like Aloy, obviously, that all they share is the DNA. So maybe there's like some deeper message they're going for there. But I like that dynamic, and there's a couple of scenes later on that are quite nice. And I think, I'm curious to see where they go with that character and where they end off, like, is she sticking around? Is she kind of going? I don't know, but I'm curious. But I think, it's a good addition. Like you said, that initial surprise, like, that's a wow moment for sure. That's one of the best like shocks or twists in the story. And then obviously, I think for me it was maybe a bit sour just because I wasn't a big fan of the rest of the characters in that moment. But
glad they didn't reveal that in a trailer too, right? Like, that could have easily been a story hook of like, oh, and there's another clone. I'm glad that was like a nice like surprise for us playing the game of, oh, okay, this is the route we're going. And then they were followed by your favorite people. So.
And then there's some stuff that I don't know if you would have gotten to it yet, so I won't say any more about her. But I'm into the character. I think it's a fun twist, and I'm excited to talk more story stuff when in a few weeks from now when we've finished some of the main story. Because there's a lot going on here. It's a dense game.
And I'll definitely be done by then. I'm excited to talk about any of the problems that we had that we're kind of on the fence about, if those ended up kind of confirming our worst fears, or if they kind of turned around. Same thing, maybe these Zenith people end up being great or something like that. Plus Xylons is still out there. I feel like he's going to keep kicking around. I know Aloy says she's got to kill him, but I feel like they're going to pull him off for a bit.
Another character too that's just disappeared.
Like, that's classic Xylons though, right? He's always going away. I
wanted to quickly talk about like DLC or what we see in the future. But do you have any
Mhm.
final thoughts on the game itself before we
No,
move on?
no, like I said, I think there's some stuff that we brought up, like it might have sounded a bit negative in the middle there, but I think that's just because the stuff that they do so well, they just keep doing that so well, right? And I think we
Mm-hmm.
were kind of wanting the lesser stuff of the first one to get better, or some of the new stuff they introduced to be good. And it's not that's good, it's just that I still feel, again, when we were talking about that first one, I felt, okay, the second one, I feel like that's going to be that game of the year in
Yeah.
contention. I feel like, again, when you get maybe your list, our list, or just the video game awards, when you get that list of 5 to 7 games, I do think it will be in there, but I think it's one of those, it's not, oh, it's for sure, especially this year stacked, right? But still, even if you look at last year's list, I don't think this was going to be a game that, like, oh, this is a for
Mm-hmm.
sure could win it. And that's what I was kind of expecting from it. But again, luckily, I still have lots to play. I'm still really enjoying it. I don't regret the purchase. When I said it's more DLC of, Horizon, that's not a bad thing, because that's why I got the Spider-Man DLC, because I love that game. I love the gameplay, the mechanics, everything. So when I got that, even Miles, that's why I think I liked it more than you. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
it was more of that world, more of that game style. I liked it. So this is the same thing here. So I'm excited to see once I get to the end of it too, story-wise, if that can maybe end a bit stronger than it began. And Aloy, please don't just go massacring tribes with your cannon guns anymore.
Yeah, stop doing that, Aloy.
Yeah, one's enough.
Yeah. Yeah, we want her to be the protagonist of this platform fighter that we're gonna make a
Yeah, exactly,
hypothetical
yeah.
list for. So we need her to stay in good graces. But I'm at the point today where like I've been more excited for Elden Ring than this game, even though this is
Mhm.
more of a known quantity, and that's like still the case. But I'm also like, I wish Elden Ring was a few more days back, because I just want more time
Yeah.
to play this game and. I'm gonna try and finish the main story, I guess, before that. But man, that's coming up, so hopefully I
Oh,
can
yeah.
do that, because I think when Elden Ring comes out, I'll have to shift over that for content purposes. But yeah, I'm excited to play through the rest of this. But yeah, I wanted to quickly talk about like what to expect next. And obviously, you mentioned this earlier that if it's going at the same rate, I don't know
Mhm.
if you don't know if you'd be super excited for another game in the trilogy. And I think I feel the same way. And I think DLC wise, what I would like to see is not something like a Frozen Wilds. And I didn't finish that, so maybe it's great, but I don't think I want something like that. Instead, I want them to just copy Ghost of Tsushima here, man. I would love a
Mm.
multiplayer mode where you're
Oh,
going down,
yeah.
taking down bases, you're going down, taking out machines as a team. Like that would work so well. And like we talked about with the skill tree, how they kind of bolstered that up. Like that would be great if you got 4 people on the team. One guy's like a trapper type, one's a
Mhm.
more of a supportive healer, one's just like the direct hunter, maybe one's a more of a melee focused. Like to me, just copy Ghost of Tsushima Legends and make it into Horizon, because I would love to play through some co-op missions with you, taking
Oh.
down those giant machines, like having those just emergent gameplay systems going through as a team would be super cool. So that's what I think what I want from DLC. If they do story DLC, I might pick it up. Like I probably will end up picking it up, and maybe it'd be the same Frozen Wilds thing where I play it for a couple hours and then bounce. But I think to me that would get me really excited. And yeah, I just feel like this game is so similar to Ghost of Tsushima in so many ways that I think it would work well. Is that something you would like to see?
Oh, absolutely. That would be tons of fun, just taking down those
Even a
machines
crossover
together.
game, between the
Oh,
two.
oh, yeah. And I think, like, I don't know if they're doing this, because I feel like it is going to go the same trajectory where you'll get a DLC, and then I think this game will sell well enough to get a third, just because it's reviewed very well, and I think this is one of their more
Mm-hmm.
like newer franchises. But just the emphasis, even the story of like the clans and working together. I know we talk about some Golden Geeks, but at times it feels very much like Raya the Last Dragon, where they're all like separated, but it's like there's this one common issue. Can we
Right.
come together? And I feel like that would be great. Like that's the online mode right there. Is you could even play people from different clans, and maybe they specialize in some certain type of attack or some certain type of play style. And oh no, that would be fantastic to have a squad of people and you and me just like taking down these machines and everything like that, really coordinating. So then when you have like
Mm-hmm.
my mount that's just coming over messing things up, that wouldn't happen. So that would be great. I wish and I hope more people do copy Legends, because that was just. But again, I want to temper my expectations, because that was such a nice surprise and such a great
Yeah,
just.
and the fact that it was free like that. It's hard to ask for that. Like that.
Yeah, and even then, if someone was in a Horizon that good quality and if it costs a little bit, I would have been fine with playing Ghost after we play that. I was like, man, this was a steal. They should have, and maybe they will Ghost 2 make a separate game because I think there's tons they could do with that. But I hate that you put that idea in my head without any backing because I would love that to happen. But no, I think for DLC they'll probably do something like the last game. I would say.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think if I remember correctly, the co-op was rumored as a thing, or maybe it was just like
I think it was rumored.
Maybe it was just a thing that people wanted, and then they talked it into existence, and then it wasn't actual existence; it was like another multiverse kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think I've always since I've heard those rumors, I just thought, man, that'd be so cool, and I don't want to do a 40-hour campaign with someone, but just like take these little vignettes like Tsushima or this game as well would work super well for a wave-based like thing where you're just defending a location and like machines are coming in from different areas, human enemies. So yeah, I hope they do something like that. And yeah, I think at this point I'm same as you, where it's hard for me to get too excited to talk about like what if I would want a third game in the series at this point, just with how things are going. But I think, man, if they do, like I would just want them to, I think, cut back on like just the quantity of things and just make the quality a bit better and fix some of those basic systems. Steal more from Breath of the Wild. Take the climbing, take the cooking, things like that. Like just steal some more systems that other open world games have innovated in that time and do something like that. But
well, and also too, when I say the third game, that's something where I would probably still get it. I just wouldn't get it at a full pop when it first came out. It's something like later on in the year, if it's half or something like that, then I would. But it's something that if I feel the same way about this, where I still like it, I would eventually want to pick up a third and have played and everything like that. But if it's kind of similar to this, I could wait, So
yeah, and I think I'd be even like I like Aloy as a character, and I have issues with some of the writing of her and stuff, but like, the performance is great. The visuals, like she's just such an iconic character that I want to stick around with her. But at the same time, this would be a cool thing to go to a different part of the world and have a new character in a new setting, and you could do a lot of new stuff with that. So maybe that would be a good way to refresh the game as well, instead of like me coming in and being like, why does Aloy have no arrows? I had so many arrows last week. Like, what's going on here? So yeah, I think that's it. Look at this. I did not expect that we'd go for 3 hours,
almost
considering that we haven't beaten the game yet. But I think that just goes to show that we're so passionate about the first game that going into this, it was naturally going to be the same thing. And man, the game came out on Thursday, but I feel like I've played like a shit ton of this game. It sounds like you have too. So we did grind a lot over the weekend. We also had a long weekend here in Canada, so that helped as well to have Monday off to get a few more hours in. Yeah,
that's why. I got some in. I was like, I just need a break. I've seen too many of the glowing things, but no, it was good. It was one of our more anticipated games these past few years. I'm excited it's here, and if people are still with us this far too, is let us know. Like Dylan said at the beginning, let us know your thoughts if we're completely in line with you, if you disagree and stuff like that. If maybe non-spoiler, if things get better with the Zenith people. But yeah, I'm excited. In a couple of weeks when I'm back on, we'll talk about it a bit more.
Yeah, so as Travis, I think it's the March. There, I have my sheet.
It's like 16th or something. No, maybe I'm too. Maybe 16th or 20th.
Well, I think that's when it comes out. But I have you for the March 21st. I think is the Monday. So that week is when Travis will be back. We'll be talking about Tunic.
So literally a month. From now. So
that's a long time then to finish up some Horizon stuff.
No problem. I'll finish that main story.
Yeah, we'll talk about Horizon more. We'll talk about Tunic, and then also I think Mario Kart, like the first round of DLC comes out the week before. So I'll be playing that, so I can talk about that as well. So that'll be a fun week. But yeah, join us next week for Elden Ring. Get your questions in for that as well. That's going to be a spicy one. And Elden Ring, I think, is going to be another one where, I'm going to review it a few days after picking it up. It's not going to be enough time to beat it.
No.
It'll be a fun discussion. But then I'm thinking, assuming I'm going to like Elden Ring, which I hope I do, I'd like to do like a spoiler, deeper discussion, like after completing the game a few weeks later. So expect something like that as well. And then triangle strategy after that. So a lot of fun stuff. March is like full now too. So
loaded.
It's crazy. Even like now it's bleeding into April. Now we got like strikers in June. So we just it's a good time to be a gamer. So yes, once again, subscribe to the Sidequest, Geekverse Sidequest feed to get the gaming content specifically. Check out our social medias, over to the Patreon, Discord, all that good stuff. Travis, this was so much fun, and man, it's been nice to review a game, a big game again. specifically.
Yeah, it's good, and we still got, like you said, a year full of tons of things
Mm-hmm.
going on. Hopefully, a Marvel Midnight Suns too at some point.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
that's
so
I think a summer thing now.
I was thinking
So
about that today. I'm like, when's the next big one that I might be on? I'm like, all right, it's Midnight Suns, and you got
I'm gonna be
Starfield next
salty
year.
if that comes out the same week as Strikers. Like, give me. That's all I'm
Yeah,
asking.
that'll go.
is
That'll
give me a
go on
little
the
bit of
back
break.
burner. Strikers is that's a Marvel Alliance type of thing for
Yeah,
us.
that's a big
That's a big one. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, everyone, we will see you next week to talk about more video games. Thank you for joining us here. And yeah, here's Amanda with the music. We'll see you next time. Later.